part of the Earglue Media family of podcast.
You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 331, The Rise of Skywalker. No, sorry, that's not what we're doing. We're talking about...
Thank goodness.
We are talking about Return of the Jedi, and
Thank
this is part 6 of 9 episodes that we are doing, looking like a flashback look, if you will, at all of the Skywalker Saga episodes. And we're going to wrap up the original trilogy tonight, so... buckle in. This is probably going to be about a 3-hour show if we stick to the script. And that does not include all our fan mail and the contest winner and all that great stuff. So joining me tonight is the man with scorn in his eyes.
Because I don't want to do a 3-hour show. I do not. I know you like to gab, but Albert, come on, man. It's 10 o'clock Eastern time. I'm going to pass out at like 10:30. Yeah,
we're going to get to the Nanta. I joked about this, but we are going to break down Nanta's death, which is the poor little Ewok that gets shot by the ATST, and then the other
a glorious
Ewok tries
moment in the original trilogy.
No,
it was a beautiful moment. It was beautiful. Well, we'll get to that when we get to that. Sorry,
Sure.
I don't mean to cut you off.
That's all right.
I'm making the show longer by babbling.
Exactly. This is your own doing, Mike Rondo.
Yes.
Or undoing. All right, well, let's get started. We're not going to do news because there really is a lot to talk about. But so we start these shows by kind of doing a tail of the tape, looking back on how much money this thing made, how much it pulled in. $32 million was the budget. Box office was $475 million, which not as successful as the second one or the first one. I think it throws it in the top 20 of all time when adjusted for inflation.
Not
but
too
I think
shabby.
not too shabby. I mean, come on, all things considered, right? I mean, who am I kidding here? But yeah, it comes in at number 17. Avengers Endgame is number 16, Avatar 15, and then after that, number 18 is Jurassic Park, and then finally the next movie we already talked about The Phantom Menace, which was number 19, adjusted for inflation. So, all right, where did you see this one? Do you remember when you first saw this? Yeah, who's that?
Seekonk Cinema in Seekonk, Massachusetts. That was the big theater back in the day around here.
Yeah.
So I'd go to the showcase there. That's what Seekonk Showcase, whatever you want to call it. I even mentioned this in the documentary, the prequel Strike Back, when I first saw it. Yeah, I remember this was it. This is the first one I saw in the theater. This was like a big moment for me. I remember we were going in and we couldn't. I like to sit in the back row of of a movie theater, and we couldn't do that, so we had to sit in the front. And I remember just my neck, like looking this way, and like the reflection would bounce off of the screen and on the floor. So I'm looking at the floor. It was crazy times for me. I was like, oh my God, like my life changed forever that moment, because now here I am doing this here with you all these years later. It's funny, if I could go back in a time machine and visit like 8-year-old Mike or whatever and say, dude, one day you're going to be having this podcast thing. It's going to be crazy times. It's going to be interesting. You just wait.
Just wait.
It'd be
Gonna rock
interesting.
your socks off.
Of course, I'll tell him, don't go. Never mind. I won't get into that. But anyway,
there's a lot. There's a lot of things your older Mike should tell younger Mike. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, maybe not even start the podcast. That might be the best advice.
Don't do it. You're gonna regret it.
Yes, you will. All right. But anyway, well, how about you? That was my first. You've seen the original, right? So
yeah, this one was. This is kind of a weird time because we were transitioning from Michigan to Texas, and the movie had come out. I think that's just in the spring, and so we were already kind of packing up and heading out. So I want to say I remember seeing it in Michigan, but I'm not. It's kind of fuzzy memory, really. I do recall seeing it in Texas once we got here, and I remember seeing that a few times. We'd moved in with my relatives, and they had two cousins of mine that were kind of around my age. One was a little bit older, one was just slightly older, but they were into Star Wars, and so we definitely went out and saw this a number of times. So this is one of the ones I did get to see in the theater, and anytime I had a chance I got to see in the theater, I did. But what I really recall about Return of the Jedi is this is around the time the VCRs were starting to really kind of pick up speed, and people were starting to get more access to them, whether you went and rented them or, if you were splashing the cash and kind of buying your own VCR, you had that. But having these copies on VHS was huge. So by the time 85 rolled around, 86, I had these on the extended play, the super long play, which is a horrible grainy quality. But I mean, I wore those tapes out anytime there was anything going on. I'd throw these in. And this is when I started trying to memorize numbers and stats and, lines and everything else, because there really was not a whole lot of Star Wars out there. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, this is definitely pretty huge. And I would say, I'd like to say I contributed to the money that it pulled in, both in the box office and on the toys and all that. What do you got
Well,
pulled up here?
I pulled up Return of the Jedi, the Scholastic books.
Oh,
'Cause
I
I
should have
remember,
pulled
you
it.
know,
I've got mine back here, but
I wish I kept this because I got this. I remember after I seen the movie, we went back to school or whatever in the fall or whatever, and we had the things that you could order, the books or whatever,
yeah.
which I never really did. But then all the Star Wars books were coming out, and I had to
yeah.
get this one because look at the
I mean, look
photo
at the
with Luke.
cover. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what drew me in. The green lightsaber. I was like, woo, I gotta have that, right?
Right.
So it pulled me right in, and I just remember this is like you're talking about the merchandise, and this is one of those. Like, and then of course with the toys and everything, you had the Biker Scout. I had to have the Imperial Guards. All that stuff was awesome. So I just wanted to. This is like a memory of mine here with this book. It's just funny that I remember this stupid book that I can't remember the book itself. It was just like a picture book.
Yeah,
if
it's
I
got
remember.
it's got a lot of big photos in it. There's not a lot of text in there. Well, I mean, that's not true. There is
A typical book I would read. Yes, a big
yeah,
picture book.
big pictures, shiny
Yeah.
objects. Right. Yeah. Right
Yeah.
up your alley.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was that. You mentioned the toys. The Rancor was one that I really wanted that I never got. Just seeing that was pretty impressive. There were a number of marketing things that were going on with Return of the Jedi, and like we said, when we got to Revenge of the Sith, this did feel like it was the last one. I mean, there was even at the very end, like even during the production of this, and you go back and look at some of these interviews that were kind of running around circa 82, 83, and you've got like George Lucas himself saying, "Yeah, I've got other movies in my head, and I don't know when that's going to happen, if it will ever happen." So you kind of got this impression or this feeling that this was the last one.
Oh, yeah.
No one really knew what we were going to get from this point on. So it did feel like it was kind of coming to an end. And I remember one interview from Lucas saying, "Hey, I was, I set out to do 3 movies. I did the 3 movies, and he had Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Indiana Jones franchise was really going. He was probably looking
Howard
forward
the
to
Duck.
that. Howard the Duck. He had Willow coming up. I mean, there was just a lot of things that he was trying to get away from Star Wars, not in a bad way, but he just wanted to continue to kind of expand all that. So, yeah, it was kind of an interesting moment to think that, are we ever going to get any more Star Wars? And this is what began, with the conclusion of this movie. This began what I call the dark times.
Oh, yeah.
And not to say that there wasn't Star Wars, because that's not what I was. There's a show I did called The Dark Times, and I forget when we did this, like a year ago. But really what I was trying to convey in that little short podcast, it's only like 15 minutes, but what I was trying to convey was there wasn't Star Wars like there is Star Wars today. Right?
Oh yeah, it was like a tumbleweeds for like 16 years.
And you didn't have access to the internet. You didn't have access to all the media wasn't available. So like even today, if there was no Star Wars that came out, you would have access to a lot of Star Wars, even though it was already, you've watched it or read it or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't the case back then. So anyways, that's not this show. Let's do this. Let's talk about some of the off-screen stuff going into this movie, and I want to start with the title. So, and it's no mistake. I mean, you can kind of see it here in my background. I'm looking like it's really there because that's kind of movie magic stuff that's happening here. But Revenge of the Jedi, right, is the title, and you can see the poster back there. So for those of you that don't know the story behind this, Revenge of the Jedi was the original title for the movie. They took this to, and I forget the name of the producer at the time, or the guy at 20th Century Fox. They pitched this to, and he was originally, I can't remember what happened, but he's like, it needs to be Revenge of the Jedi, and so they left the title alone. They didn't mess with it. They went through the entire production of the movie, and then literally
should have stayed with Blue Harvest. It would have been
well, yeah. Well, we won't get into that, but
okay.
Right before the movie came out, Lucas came back and said, "You know what? Revenge really isn't what a Jedi would do." So
But didn't someone suggest
he did a
that to him?
0-hour change there.
Didn't someone suggest that to him though?
The title?
Like one of the producers say, "Well, revenge isn't what a Jedi would do, right? Is it? Or am I? I'm fuzzy on this. I can't
No,
remember.
it was
like,
his. It was his
it was
idea.
him?
He came back. Yeah, he came back and told the Fox producer stuff guys or whoever
Yeah.
it was and said, "No, sorry, but we're gonna change
Change
it
it.
to Return of the Jedi."
Yeah. All right.
And
I
then that's
always. Yeah. All right.
so they did
That's fine.
one poster, right? I mean, this is
Yep.
you can kind of see it there in the background. That poster's out there. It's worth a crazy ton of money if you can ever find it.
I have
And,
that poster, by the way.
Do you?
I do. I have that poster. Someone's holding it for me, and someday
Oh,
she's going to give it to me.
that's really
But,
nice of her.
Yeah, it is. It is nice of her. Anyway,
That's an
she'll
inside
be-
joke. That's our social media person.
Yeah,
Miss
she'll
Kat.
be yelling at me in about 2 seconds when the feed catches up to the chat. So
Yeah, 3, 2,
continue,
1.
Albert, if you will.
But yeah, so that's the return. That's the Revenge versus Return of the Jedi posters. So that was one of them. But there was still another poster that came out, and that was the. Can you pull that up? Pull up the blue lightsaber being held up into the air.
All right, hold on. Give me a second. Let me get to Google here.
Because that one did. I remember that very fondly because that poster was the one that we saw in the theaters. I mean, I remember that in the theaters. Not any of the other posters. Not even this. I don't think I ever saw this Revenge or Return of the Jedi poster ever. But I recall the blue lightsaber poster, and that was kind of done on purpose. And originally, the story goes they were going to have Luke ignite the blue lightsaber. He wasn't even going to have constructed a green lightsaber. But when they got out to Tatooine and they filmed the scene on the sail barges and all
Couldn't
that, and the
see it.
skiffs, it was getting washed out in the background. And so they had to change it. And so from that derived the green lightsaber, which, when you look at this poster, you're like, oh, he's holding up a blue lightsaber. Well, that's not actually what it holds. So it almost feels like they were kind of pulling the rug out from underneath, but they really weren't. It's just they had a technical problem they couldn't solve. So
Oh yeah. Well, when was this poster? This poster had to be well before. Like they've made this well before
they filmed and did post-production stuff.
Exactly. So once you get into the thing and you're like in the editing room, you're like, hey, this isn't gonna work.
Right. We can't see the lightsaber, Mr. Lucas.
Yeah, we gotta change that, George. And he's like, well, fine.
Like a green. Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, I wonder how that came. We'll just he's maybe got one of those flavored ice, and he's got the green one, and he's like, well, go green. Maybe that's how that was done.
And it's the first time it's that moment in itself, which we'll get to here in a little bit, is pretty amazing. But the fact that he ignites a green lightsaber, I mean, prior to that,
that was
we
cool.
hadn't seen any other color. I mean, it was blue and red, and that was it. That's all we knew in the infancy of what the Jedis and Jedi were and the Order and all that stuff. And it wasn't until we get to, Phantom Menace, where in Attack of the Clones, when we got every other color in the spectrum right out of the Star Wars, The Old Republic.
Well, as Bob Ross would say, it was a happy little mistake. That's what that was.
That is very true.
Because I think it was a better move. Like, you get to the third movie, and you needed that, like, something like of a surprise. Like, whoa, like when we get to the scene, we'll get to the scene. Like, I know we're going to talk about it because it's actually Josh from Film Appraisers. It's his favorite moment, I believe.
Moment all time, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because of that music. That music's awesome. But all right, continue.
All right, so we'll get into something slightly controversial. I know you don't care, but I want to talk about it.
I know, because well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's irrelevant.
It is, but we got to talk about it because I think we're talking about off-screen, on-screen things. I want to talk about Gary Kurtz. So for those of you who do not know, and I'm not picking sides. I don't want to get into all the controversy. No, listen. So if you don't know the story about Gary Kurtz, he was the producer. He was one of the producers along with Lucas. And depending on who you talk to and depending on what day it is, he is either as equally influential as Lucas was in a lot of the things that happened in Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. Not from the story. Don't get me wrong. I'm not pulling anything. The story is Lucas's 100%. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is he was not one of the guys that allowed Lucas to make a decision and not challenge him. And I think that was really good for Lucas. I think it pushed him. I think that's why we got great movies like Star Wars and we got great things like in Empire, because in Empire, he was getting checked by two people. He was getting checked by Kirshner and he was getting checked by Kurtz. Yeah. I don't think he felt comfortable with that and didn't like that. So going into Return of the Jedi, there were a couple of things, and this isn't the only reason. I mean, he'd already I think he left the Directors Guild Association or whatever that is, and he couldn't hire who we really wanted to go direct the movie, which was Steven Spielberg, because he had alienated himself from that.
Well, yeah. Steven said, "I want to win an Oscar, so sorry, I can't do it."
Yeah, right.
So
unfortunately, he couldn't do that. So he was really left between a rock and a hard place. Gary Kurtz had left, and he really had no other choice. So he ended up picking this. Was he Welsh? I think Richard
Yeah.
Marquand.
Yeah.
To come and direct the movie. But the reason I brought up Gary Kurtz is simply because there was I guess a Kurtz version of the script that they had been working on along with Larry Kasdan. So Larry and George ultimately wrote the script for Return of the Jedi. Gary Kurtz had a say in a lot of that, and what we would have gotten would have been a little bit different. And this is kind of what we talked about in the last episode. You know, Luke and Leia were never going to be brothers and sisters, right? They were going to be two totally different people. And Leia was going to leave, essentially, Luke at some point early on in the movie and be like, hey, I can't be part of this rebellion. I've got to go back and, pick up the pieces from Alderaan and lead those people again. And so that kind of leaves Luke to kind of figure things out on his own without the benefit, of somebody like Leia.
Yeah.
There was going to be a lot less action in the movie originally, more focused, more character focused, more story focused. And that's where I feel like that's what Kurtz really wanted. And that's really kind of what I think Larry Kasdan probably does the best of, is develop character development and not I think George does a great job with just the imagery and just these crazy ideas, the big ideas. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think there was a good balance with them there. And I think when he left, we kind of lost some of that balance. And then this really doesn't really manifest until we get to, I think, The Phantom Menace, which we're not going to talk about because we've already talked about some of the shortcomings there. And I think the other thing, too, was Han Solo was going to be killed in a raid. I think, Ford wanted out of this. He said yes to the third movie. They were still going to try to find a way to get rid of him at some point. And then I think,
as Lucas said, he sells action figures. Han Solo sells action figures.
Well, that's a great segue, because the other thing that Kurtz really, really did not like, he is very outspoken. You can go out there and look at interviews, YouTubes, and this isn't stuff that he's putting out on his own. I mean, people are going to him and asking him these questions, and he's just being honest, or he was. And he just said it. This movie franchise had turned into a toy franchise. I mean, and we talked about this in last episode. He was making way more money than on the toys than he was necessarily with box office stuff. So from Kurtz's perspective, hey, we're losing focus here, and we're losing our touch on the creativity and really doing this great movie because we're too focused on creating characters to sell action figures and toys and marketing and merchandise and all of that. And so he's been pretty outspoken about that as well. But at least in my opinion, I hold him in very high regard. I really think a lot of the great things that we love, at least personally, that I really love about Star Wars, from the character development and some of just, again, the first two movies, came from that great relationship, even though it was probably
pretentious
at times. But I think that was good for him. I really like the fact that somebody was there to kind of challenge George Lucas, and I think that's what gave us the best movies, in my opinion, which were Part 4 and 5. But anyways, so I know you don't care, so you can just say you don't care. But what are your thoughts?
I don't really care.
Let's go. All right, next on. Let's move on to the next.
Well, I mean, he's kind of right. I mean, people want to complain about the prequel trilogy, right? Like that was their thing, George. But you could see the beginning of it here, really. If you want to be that crucial of it, you could say Return of the Jedi. He's got the teddy bears, he's got the new action figures, the Biker Scout, the Royal Guards, the green lightsaber. He's throwing things in but it worked, right? Like the speeder bikes, we all loved it, but the story was still pretty good overall, right? And we're gonna get to that when we get to our scenes and everything. But you could say, well, the beginning of, not as good as it was the previous two movies. I'm just saying. I'll leave it at that. But we'll continue.
Yeah. So anyways, if you want to know more, go look up Gary Kurtz and look at some of the interviews and some of the stuff. It's really interesting, and it's funny. Like, being a Star Wars fan, you kind of, I don't know, this is my own personal experience. You go on this journey where you start off like, and we were joking about this, and I totally joke with you on this, Mike. But you start off with the shiny objects, right?
Yeah.
You're intrigued by the lightsabers and space combat and all that really fun stuff, and that never goes away. I think at some point you start to get into, okay, now what is the mythology and what are the stories and what are the lessons here? And then once you leave that, you start getting into the behind the scenes stuff and the production stuff and who really influenced Star Wars from that aspect. And that's a whole nother level of understanding and appreciation of Star Wars and how we got where we are, which I think is really cool. So I hope everybody does at some point get there, because I think it just, overall, I think it really gives you a really good holistic view of all of Star Wars. And I think you can appreciate it on a different level, and different levels, not bad levels or whatever, but just different levels. Anyways.
Yeah.
All right. enough of the off-screen stuff. Let's get to the on-screen. I got a problem with the fact that the crawl is the only crawl in all these movies with 3 periods on the ellipse. Like, why did they not fix it? Even the Disney Plus version that just came out, there are only 3, and all the other ones have 4. Don't say you don't care, Rondo, because I know you do.
I really don't, because I'm going to confess something. You're going to be mad at me.
Okay, what is it?
I never cared about the crawl. Like, when it came out, they get the blaring, yeah. I never really read it. Didn't really give a crap. I just kind of was.
I'm seeing a theme here with you.
Let's get on
text,
with the movie.
Get out of here. I don't want to see this stuff.
I don't want text.
Give me the pictures.
Give me the fancy pictures. The the green
Shiny
lightsaber and all that. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't really get into it all that much. I did when I get older. I get into the whole what it was really saying and stuff. But when I was younger, 8 years old, I didn't care about that. Get to the action. Get to the Battle of Hoth. Get to Luke igniting the green lightsaber. All that stuff. I didn't.
Yeah.
Hoopla. That was stuff for the adults to kind of get an idea of what the hell was going on at that time. That's all I looked at it. I get to the action. So I'm sorry that one dot upset you.
It still does.
For the last 30 some odd years.
Sleep over this.
I'm sorry. I feel bad for you.
Okay, that's my petty moment. So thank you all for joining us tonight. I'll move on. Let's talk about the opening scene, because it opens up with the whole shuttle Tideria coming in, and it lands, and we get to see the Emperor for the first time, which I thought was a great scene. Like, I really like, and I know we've already given some flack to like the Royal Guards, but I love the design of the Royal Guards. First off,
I do too,
and the contrast between them being in red, and then you've got everybody in white, and then you've got the Emperor and Palpatine in black, and then you've got these neutral grays for the middlemen of it, right? Those are the officers. I mean, that whole scene and the way it opens up, I think, is just pretty cool. Not that the Emperor is there, but I'm just saying that whole scene when it opens up and just seeing all that looks pretty great. And the line about we shall, the Emperor's coming here, we shall double our efforts, and then we get that line of he's for your sake, because the Emperor's not as forgiving as I am. I mean, that right there sets a tone like, whoa, we've seen Vader do some really crazy stuff. We know he's like the ultimate evil. We talked about earlier, and we talked about in Empire Strikes Back, where we saw him kneeling down, but then you start thinking, man, your first viewing, you're thinking, wow, okay, so somebody's actually not as forgiving after, he just killed 8 million people in the last movie for screwing up things, right? But yeah, so anyways, that just kind of sets the tone and sets the stage for finally getting the Emperor.
That's one of my favorite intros with Vader, though. You may dispense with the pleasantries, and all that stuff. I like that. That was, of course, as we joked with what was it, with Ahsoka coming down on the ship. We wanted the same look like with Vader coming down the walkway on the shuttle and that, but we didn't get that, unfortunately, which is surprising because like you posted a picture earlier of Anakin on the bridge, which is very similar to what was on the bridge in Return of the Jedi. Basically the same shot. You would have thought Dave would have done the foot thing with the but he didn't. Sorry, Dave. You messed up, man. You ruined the whole thing for me.
Exactly.
I'm gonna make a YouTube video about it now and all that stuff. I ain't kidding. Anyway,
so we get that part. Okay, then we get to Tatooine, which we went back to Tatooine, and I was trying to think like that's the first time. I'm trying to think like, even in Star Wars Episode 4, I knew the name of the planet Tatooine because it was probably done outside and trivia books had it, but they never really say the name of the planet in Episode 4. Right?
They say it in 5, right? At the end, right? When
in 5 he says Tatooine, which we've already dumped on that one. But
come on, they didn't know what the hell they were doing at that time. I mean, come on. There was a lot of loose ends at the end of Empire Strikes Back, with the whole sister-brother thing and whatever. But
my point was that we went back to that planet until Luke says, I grew up here, or you're going to die here. Until that moment, you don't really get this. You don't have it's hard to put 2 and 2 together for me. At least it was. I mean, you could say that, Jabba was on Tatooine in Part 4, and now this is his palace, so logically maybe he's there because the guy doesn't move around, doesn't seem very mobile. I don't know, but
it was kind of a throwback because Luke says in A New Hope, "I'm never coming back here."
Yeah, right.
Immediately, you're coming back here, pal.
Yep. And this is where it's all going to happen.
Yep. And of course, then everyone jokes that Han's like looking at him. He's supposed to be blind at the time, and he's looking like right at Luke. You're gonna die here. That was a great line though. That was very Han Solo. I did like that.
The Jabba's palace. I mean, there's a lot to say here. I mean, overall, I love all the creature designs. You know, that
Beaumont
palace,
monks, man.
the
Those
Beaumont
guys.
monks. I mean, that's a
love those
great
guys.
story if you get a chance to read that in Legends.
That's like my idol.
Is that what you want to do? Get your
That's
brain
what
put
I
in a
wanna be.
jar and
Oh yeah.
crawl
Just
around?
forget all my bodily possessions and all that stuff, and just crawl around in spider legs like Maul. It'll be great.
So if you're not following, the Beaumont monks are the little spider droid thing you see
Goes
crawling
out the
for like
door.
half a second there at the very
Yeah.
when C-3PO and R2-D2 come into the palace.
Yes.
There
And
you
that
go.
was actually their palace. That was their monastery.
Right.
From Legends, I think. I don't know if it's official anymore.
No, that's all
Um,
Legend stuff. And I think
yeah.
Jabba leased some of the area and then eventually just took it over.
Yeah, something crazy. But anyway, that was cool. Them and the father, they're like my philosophical heroes there in all of Star Wars. But anyway,
Aspirations. Yeah.
yes, exactly.
All right, I have this question about droids feeling no pain. This is the one that bothered me as a kid. Like that one droid that, once they take R2 back there and tells them to put a restraining bolt on him, and you've got that one droid that's upside down, they're kind of pressing on his feet. And
I
like-
thought that was funny. That
Of
says
course
a lot
you
about
did.
me back in
yeah,
the
it does.
Yeah.
It really says a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I
You pull
thought
the
it was
wings
comical.
off bugs too? Because that's...
No, I
Okay.
didn't do that. I mean, it was just I could see George. This is his type of humor, like the absurdity of a droid torturing a droid. It's almost like machines making machines, as
Yeah.
C-3PO says. It's
Right.
kind of the same thing. It's like kind of perverse when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do they feel pain? They must, because as C-3PO says, we're made to suffer. It's our lot in life. That's a good question. It's the
That is a good
philosophical question of, do they feel pain? Are they?
Well,
they
I mean, there's
actually- are they
emotional pain, but
beings?
this is like physical pain. Like they press down that hot red thing and he screams, and then there's like steam coming up, and I don't know. It was always just really bizarre.
Yeah, well, it's like, is there free will in Star Wars? There's that argument too.
That may have been the first time I saw anything or anyone be tortured on television. So I'm glad it was a droid and not anything else. All right, let's really get into okay, now we're going to really get into some really deep philosophical stuff.
Ooh.
Because now we're talking Lopty Neck versus Jedi Rocks. So
I like Jedi Rocks. but
special oh, come on. So see,
What?
special this is where we're going to talk about special edition now
I
because
like
this
the
is
special
where
edition. What? Except I don't know if I like.
you know who
the-
didn't like the special editions?
Who?
Gary Kurtz.
Oh, what a shock.
Gary Kurtz.
Yeah,
No, but
well,
then that's not the point.
They didn't do his script. That's why he's all
No,
mad.
he's
Yeah.
no, he's got a good point. We're not talking about that. But so why did they change it? Like I liked
Because
Lopty
George
Neck.
wanted to upset Gary. He's like, I'll show him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I
what it
don't.
was.
I'm not a big fan of Jedi Rocks. I also
Now that song is in my head right now as we're talking. So I
Jedi
should
Rocks?
yeah, I should punch it up on my phone, but I won't do that.
I have so
No, don't do it. I don't want a copyright strike or
No,
anything
we're not.
like
We've already
last
done with
week.
that.
Yeah, we don't want to get in Disney's bad, side.
So what you
But
may
anyway.
not know is Joseph Williams, who is John Williams' son, who is actually one of the singers. He's like one of the primary singers now for Toto. He's actually he actually is the one that did the song Lopty Neck. Like he wrote it and at the time and all that, and then they got rid of it, and so maybe that's why I'm bitter. But I just don't like the sound of it, and I think, and I've heard stories and unconfirmed stories. I guess I don't know. Maybe it's true or not. I've heard that at some point they were going to really try to put this out there as an actual CD or single or something and try to make money on Jedi Rocks, and so that's why it's got the different sound that it has. I don't know if that really fits in with 97 when the special edition came out. That's not the music I was listening to in 97. But I don't know. I guess I don't know. It's just one of those things where I don't think they had to change
mean,
anything. I
to
like the
be
way the
honest,
original was there.
I didn't really care. It didn't bother me either way. I mean, I guess my excitement was, there's more Boba Fett, right? Because we got that, so I was excited about that. I don't know. I mean, was it needed? It's one of those things like we discussed before. Was it needed? Did it add anything? Like Jabba the Hutt being in A New Hope, did it really do much other than, like you just said earlier, like it connects to the Return of the Jedi where, Jabba's palace, we know about it, blah, 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 that type of thing. So, I don't know. Is it, I don't know. I can see where you'd be annoyed, but for me, Okay.
Let's talk about, all right, fine. Let's talk about Boba Fett and Leia's Boshin coming in with Chewbacca and all that. Because this is really where it starts to get interesting, right?
Yes.
And her coming in. What was her original plan? Like
I
this
don't know
is
what
something.
was Luke's original plan.
No, I agree. Let's talk about either one of those.
What was Lando's original plan? What was anyone's plan other than let's just try this?
Yeah.
Well, just see in my mind, Luke had a vision and kind of saw all this playing out.
He would have had to. I agree.
Yeah,
like I
and
can't.
this
Otherwise,
is-
it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Correct. And like with all visions, they don't go the way you think they're going to go. And that's why they get in the situation they are, because he's overconfident. He was cocky, which is probably the lesson he learns when he goes to face the Emperor and realizes the Emperor's being like he was. But anyway, I look at it that way. Leia, I don't know what she and Chewie were thinking.
Because I mean, she comes in with Chewie.
Yeah.
She hands him over to Chewie, or hands Chewie over to
Yeah.
Jabba. My only things I can think of is, okay, so the plan was to get Han, free him, then go free Chewbacca, or Lando would free Chewbacca. I don't know, and then all of them would just leave and then not have to worry about anything. But then, how does Luke fit into it, right? Because Luke's waiting in the wings, so this is all part of some master plan.
I believe
guess.
I took it as like Luke had a vision, told Leia, you need to do this. Lando, you need to do that. But then again, didn't Chewie and Lando leave before the two of them, if I remember right, on the
Yes.
Falcon?
Yeah, they did.
So shouldn't Lando have been the one that walked in with? I don't know. It's a bit. I don't know. I don't know what George was thinking at this point with this whole plan. It's one of those. I don't know.
If Charles Soule is still writing the comics, when we get to the comics that take place in between Empire and Return of the Jedi, I really think he's going to address this. And I think there's a great story
I hope
here.
it's a vision, though. I hope, because that's what I thought of as a kid growing up, or when the movie that came out on VHS or whatever, the tapes and everything, and the things, and you watch it and you're like, oh, well, Luke had to have a vision or something. Like he saw this, because you think of like Yoda and he sees things in the future, and you think in Luke in Empire. I think this is where I tie the knots, the dots here, is because Luke was seeing Leia and Han in the vision in the clouds and all that other stuff. So I'm assuming it happened off camera. We just didn't see it, and that's kind of how I rationalized it and kind of moved on. But when you stop and think about it, you're like, well, what was the plan with any of them?
Right.
Like it was like EGM coming up with a plan, and somehow it worked.
Yeah, it's like these show notes.
Exactly.
I don't know how we're gonna get through it.
Which are beautiful, by the way.
Anyways,
so much better than mine.
And that's not a knock. Trust me. Like, I'm really happy with how everything turns out. This is all my favorite stuff here, especially when Luke comes in and all that. But so let's talk about Luke finally showing up. And I mean, there's so much, like, just the imagery alone, right? When that door opens up and he's standing there in the full cloak and robe, or whatever, and walks in, and
it's very dark.
It's very dark. He's wearing black.
Force chokes. Yeah, he's wearing black.
I mean, the black alone was like, when you saw him, you're like, what the heck is going on here? He's supposed to be a good guy, and he's dressing like Vader. And now looking back, there's a lot to be said there, right? I mean, there's a lot of imagery there in what that means and what it could potentially signify. But the next thing is the really shocking moment is him choking.
Force choking, yeah.
Yeah, the Gamorrean guards. Like, we would never have thought the Jedi would do that. And I would even say, like, the Jedi that we saw years later and the Jedi that we know about that existed prior to that, that's still not something that they would do, unless it was like, well, I can't even think that they do it. Like, I'm having a hard time even wrapping my head around, even like now, in the comics and stuff. Was there ever a Jedi, not Legends, I'm not talking about Legends stuff, but I'm thinking about from a canon perspective, whether or not there was ever a Jedi that did anything like this. It's just so out of character. This is not part of,
Well, the only ones in like Legends is Plo Koon had Force lightning at one point, and Luke in Legends as well. And of course, we see Rey do it as well, and she's the light side. But it's that whole notion at this point in the journey, they learned an awful truth, and they're trying to figure out how to process that. And they touch on the dark side a little bit, like Obi-Wan did with Maul when he was fighting him. And this is the beauty of what George did, or whoever, the team or whatever, in Return of the Jedi, where they made it so Luke would be uncertain, right? Because they did have a plan where Luke said, he put the mask on, and says, I am Vader now, and all that stuff. So I like that this was like for the crescendo, right? This was the movie that, you kind of, typically it's kind of predictable of what it's going to be. Like, oh, this is going to wrap up, that's going to wrap up, this, that, and that.
Yeah.
And then Luke comes in wearing black, and then he force chokes these the guards, and then he goes in all like, you will bring Captain Solo and the Wookiee to me and all that other stuff. He's very confident and brash, and you're like, well, wait a minute, this isn't the Luke that I remember being as hopeful, cheerful, and all that other stuff. And eventually, you're kind of worried a little bit, which is what you want at the time when we were all seeing it 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old. You had that like, oh, this isn't going to go the way I thought,
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, like, what was Luke's plan? I mean, he comes in here, he's got no lightsaber, right?
Mhm.
That's already
Yep.
been implanted in R2D2. He doesn't have a blaster because he ends up having to pull the blaster out of, I think it was the Gamorrean guard or somebody, whoever's holster that was there. And you got to think he didn't think he was going to get captured either. And I don't, I give him the benefit of the doubt.
Well,
I don't think he was expecting the Rain Corps to be there either.
Yeah, I think he thought the mind trick was gonna. That was it.
Work,
That's all I
right.
needed to do. Like Obi-Wan did it.
We're
I
gonna
can
rock
do
right
it.
out of here, right?
Yeah, and that didn't work at all.
Yeah. So obviously they all get captured. And we got finally seeing Han Solo again. That whole scene, I thought was really great. Especially the way it was shot, and just Harrison Ford coming back to the series, which was great. I think that was in a lot of people's minds at whether or not he'd be there. And I like that they got it out of the way early on in the movie, because it really allowed him to kind of continue to develop his character. And anytime we get more Harrison Ford, I mean, it's always a good thing, right? So, that whole line between them two, who are you, or who are you? Someone who loves you. I mean, all that stuff's really great stuff. And that's Lawrence Kasdan, I think, picking up the dialogue from Empire Strikes Back that we would see a little bit later too when they get to Endor. So it's all good stuff there. Let's get to the Sarlacc pit, because this is another like momentous moment where there's a lot going on here, but visually the things that stand out, the pit itself. And again, this is one of those things where I like the original more than the special edition.
I like the beak. I added a little more jazz to it, I thought myself. I like the beak. Oh, here we go. Look! I was just like looking away, like Ben Affleck when he's in that video where he's just looking away, staring off into space. He's all depressed.
That's right,
what you
yeah.
just look like.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway. We have we got that. We got Leia in slave outfit, which we're not gonna. I mean, as a kid, I'm like, whoa, what the heck?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this is.
I'm surprised Disney didn't airbrush it out like they did everything else on Disney Plus, but
yeah,
I'm just surprised. But anyway, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we talked about this. Like, I know Josh was like one of his favorite moments. I think I was on a show when we talked about this, but that is a favorite moment for a lot of people when Luke is walking out on that little plank and does the salute, and R2 preps, and the music,
yeah,
that's playing right
great.
there. And I mean, that whole sequence, that whole
Just
action
picks you
sequence.
up.
It really does.
You want to get out there and do it.
Oh no, it's very inspiring. Like, it's very, very inspirational. And it's very moving. The music itself and what's happening, and the fact that the one thing that always gets me, and it gets me even to this day, like having watched this movie just a couple days ago in prep for this show, is when he catches a lightsaber, it ignites it. It's not even igniting; it's right after that
when he holds it and then does it.
It's the look. He almost gives this little smirk, like, this is all over now. I got it right.
Yeah.
That look itself is, I mean,
it's like, hey, it worked.
Yeah, right.
I didn't think this was going to happen. Wow. Woo.
But yeah, that's all stuff. The only downfall, I guess, the only thing that comes up short for me is the whole Boba Fett thing. And I don't want to belabor this, because this is where I really have problems with Boba Fett. And I know I've given him a hard time on the show. If you've listened to these shows, you know that I've given him a really hard time, because I feel like
it wasn't a worthy death.
It wasn't.
Well,
and I don't think we ever really
dead.
We never really get to see. I mean, he looks amazing, and his ship is amazing. But we never really get the Boba Fett that I think we all.
What's sad is like his jetpack when he's flying is not.
Oh, it's kind of like greatest American hero kind of thing flying.
When he's going off to the skiff now, like when you compare it to what we see in the Mandalorian now to that, you're like, man,
yeah,
George, where were you? Can't you go back and just retool some of this a little bit? But
they had their shot.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best. I mean, I remember being shocked and upset when he died. I'm like, no, and Han did it, so I was even more mad because Han hits him stupidly with the thing, and then
Boba Fett.
Yeah, Boba Fett, and that was the first time we heard his name, right?
Right.
Before it was Bounty Hunter or whatever. The only other thing I have with this whole scene that this is my pet peeve of the show. I'll mention this, and it wasn't a pet peeve until it was brought to my attention. I think around the special edition thing, and we had the internet, and this is the problem with the internet. Sometimes it ruins some things. Was the rope going back to the skiff and taken away, and don't forget the droids, that whole thing. But there was no rope. There's no place to hang that rope. And I'm like, it didn't bother me then, but now it bothers me. But I know it was a callback to A New Hope and everything.
Yeah, New Hope and, some of the serials and all that stuff, Flash Gordon stuff. I mean, it's all right out of that. And, we turn a blind eye to that stuff because we're so lost in the moment, and it's so emotional, and there's so much action going on. But, yeah, when you start breaking it down, you could poke holes in a lot of things there.
I mean, I took it as, like, it was part of the sail at the top, and there was a rope that came down, and that's kind of what they used, and that's kind of how I'm retconning that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's a very heroic moment, right?
Yeah.
Beginning to end on a lot of accounts, not just Luke's part.
Don't forget he gets his
Leia's
hand.
He gets hand shot in there. I mean, we get the picture that you showed, those images, and him fighting up there. We see him deflecting bolts, which we hadn't seen before.
Yep.
He does it a few times, and I mean, I don't know. It's one of the greater moments, I think, in Star Wars, and there's a lot of great moments. Don't get me wrong, but it is one of the more inspirational, one of the more heroic moments, and finally kind of flying off and all that. So,
when they take off in the skiff, and then it pans to them parting ways, and the music's playing. That's all really good stuff. I mean, I love that, but I don't know. That rope thing really just throws you off.
It bothers you, huh? All right, let's talk about a deleted scene. Now, we haven't really done this much on. We've been covering these, but this is one of those deleted scenes where I felt like we probably should talk about it.
I thought this was going to be in the Blu-ray. I thought they were going to add this. Like, I thought George was going to put it, but he did not, which I kind of wish he did.
We're talking about the construction of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. So if you've not had a chance to see this, you can go out on YouTube and look up Return of the Jedi deleted scene, Luke Skywalker lightsaber, whatever, something along that effect. You'll get to see it. I think this is it's not needed. I get why they cut it out. And maybe it was just pure fanboy and me wanting to see this. I think this is kind of weird. I actually enjoy the scene. I love the scene. I'm actually okay with it not being in the movie because I don't know that we would have that same feeling, that same effect when he ignites it, because we've already seen it, right? I think it pulls away from it, it steals from it. But it is
from the heroic moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the only reason I think
it robs attention to.
They would add it in because at this point we've all seen the moment. We've experienced the, looking at it, igniting it, and then all of us going, whoa, losing our mind back in the day. Now I figured, all right, now is the perfect time to kind of put this in. And it kind of alludes to there's some sort of plan, I guess, is like we were talking about earlier. But I think the moment I like, it's not even so much igniting the saber. It's Vader calling out to him and then him saying, Father. I thought that was pretty cool. That part I liked. I liked it because it showed they are connecting in a way.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about when he's constructing it?
Yeah, when he's constructing it, I think before he even say, because he says Luke, and then you hear him say, I think Father, if I remember the scene right, and you see him do the thing, and then he ignites it or whatever.
Yeah, and then he goes back to work, and then he ignites it.
And the reason why that scene even works, and it plays into Jabba's palace there, if you think about it, it's like, oh, this is getting darker.
Yeah.
Because now it sets up their connection and their bond. And Luke's igniting this thing like he's kind of, you're getting that anger vibe. And then when we go into the palace, you see what he does there. It kind of, if you wanted to go a darker route, I guess you could say. I mean, the movie could have really went dark pretty badly for Luke when you think about it. But anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move from that scene. I know we could probably talk about a lot more. There's a lot, and we didn't even get into like Han and Lando and some of the funny stuff that's happening there. But
could have honorable mention for things that annoy is Luke's kick that, didn't connect.
JW brought that up, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen that anywhere. It's everywhere. Yeah. It's a GIF now. And
it was a force kick. Let's just leave it at
that's
that.
what it was. That's right. Yes. Force kick.
Right. Yes, move on.
Okay, so we finally get our official first look at the Emperor. And this is where we get all the contrast of the colors and stuff and all that. That's all great. But I think one of the
Rondo, yes.
One of the things that really stood out is in
the walking stick.
It was the walking stick. Yeah, let's talk about that because I want to dive into that a little bit more.
Oh, I can't wait.
Does he? Okay, so no, seriously, does he need this walking stick? This cane?
No, it's like Yoda. He doesn't.
Is it just a gimmick? It's a
Yeah.
ploy. People.
It's like, make them think I'm weak when I'm really strong.
not.
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how it is.
Yeah. No, that's not.
Didn't you see all those kung fu movies in the 70s and 80s? Come on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. So
I'm surprised it didn't come with like carrying buckets of
and
water.
And the thing where he goes
Yeah.
like this, and those are good movies, man.
So there's two things here though that I want to just touch on. One is, for those of you who don't know, kind of behind the scenes a little bit here, but Ian McDiarmid's performance and Ian McDiarmid's portrayal of the Emperor is iconic in a lot of different ways, and we all know and love him. You're hard pressed to find anybody that doesn't like the Emperor, right? But what you may not know is originally Clive Revel or whatever his name was, the guy that did the voice in Empire Strikes Back. That's who Lucas wanted to do the voice, and Ian McDiarmid was really just trying to do. He was doing his own thing, but it wasn't. They were going to dub over it, right? And he knew that. And it wasn't until later into the production that Lucas finally came around to it and finally said, "Hey, I think they went to him. Ian and said, look, Lucas is really liking this. Can you continue to do it?" And so he did. But there was a chance at one point that we would not have heard the Emperor's voice as we know it today, which I would think we would probably lose the cackle, because this is the first time we hear it, and this is in this scene. That infamous cackle now that we all know, like, it's ominous, and we heard it in Rise of Skywalker, and we hear it later on in this movie as well. I don't think we ever heard it in Revenge of the Sith, right? Yeah, we do. When they're fighting,
yeah,
with
when
Yoda.
they're fighting.
Not the same, but yeah, when they're fighting, he does it.
Yeah, when he's throwing things down on Yoda.
Yeah, but that cackle is, it's a character trait of Emperor Palpatine and Sidious, which thanks to McDiarmid's portrayal, we got. But one thing that really stands out to me, and to this day I don't know, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, because I know you're a scholar of the Emperor, given your evil. But why is it that he comes off the shuttle?
Yeah.
And Jonesy and I have talked about this before on the show, because when we were breaking down Vader and his relationship with the Emperor on comic books and some other stuff, we've talked about this. But it sticks out that he calls him my friend.
Oh yeah,
he does it. He does it several times in this scene. He's my friend. But in this scene, though, hold on. So in this scene, it does come, and I may be wrong. I'll accept it. But it does come across as though he's being genuine. And this could be just chalked up to, oh, well, it was early on. We didn't know the things we did. And so he was just taking it in a direction that maybe he didn't know enough of, or know better not to go that route. But do you think there was anything sincere in him saying my friend, either in this scene or even later on?
No, there's never any. The only sincere moment he had with Anakin is when he touches his head on Mustafar, I believe. That's about as close as caring about Anakin and Vader ever.
And even then, I would say he doesn't care about Anakin. He's more concerned about, hey man, my property is, I put a lot of time and effort into this thing, and
and Obi-Wan,
I don't want to lose you.
It. Yeah. But then again, Obi-Wan did him a favor, because Anakin's not as powerful as he would have been had he not done what he did.
Right.
So in a way, it was an inside job. Obi-Wan's really a Sith. No. So I always took this as he's reassuring Vader, because he knows he's foreseen things, right? Like, he kind of has an idea of what's going to go on, and he knows, but of course he doesn't know about Luke wanting to go before, he's around or whatever. But I think it's him just trying to reaffirm, like, I know you're kind of getting swayed to the light a bit with Luke coming into your life here, and I kind of got to remind you, you're my friend. And he says this back in the prequel trilogies, right? Like, oh, my friend, you're going to be more powerful than they can imagine. He pulls those little strings there. But it's also, I think, Lucas trying to set it up, like, at the end when Vader turns back to the light, like, there's a possibility he doesn't do it at all. And we'll get to that. When we get to that scene, we'll talk about it. So I think it was more like a combination.
Yeah.
But I think it's just him trying to reaffirm, because he feels, I think, in his mind, there's a bit of a pull of Anakin coming up, and he just wants to remind him, oh, you're my friend, Vader. We kind of buddies. We do this thing, and, stay on my side, kind of.
Yeah, testing the water, see what he can get. Reassurance.
Oh, yeah, he might be doing that too. He might be trying to see where Vader is, so he could turn Luke at some point.
Okay.
So who knows? Yeah, I don't know. That's my answer, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to take anything this guy does or says as being genuine and sincere. So I'm with you there. I don't think it was. But it is just weird. It stands out a lot that he does this. He calls him my friend, and does it like 4 or 5 times in the movie. It's not just like a one-time thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to Yoda's final moments. So again, early on in the film, Yoda's finally kind of taking his last breath, which seemed like it came on pretty all of a sudden. But I mean,
Yeah, like
it's just
just
movie
like
magic. I mean, they got to get the story going here. He's got to die. So
I think
let's
he's
get this
like,
over with.
I'm just checking out.
Yeah. And this one, this doesn't bother me as a whole lot, but it does bother me now. Ever since the Last Jedi, this has bothered me more. But it's the line of when Yoda's talking
Because
to
the
him.
movie itself, The Last Jedi, bothered me.
No,
Not what's coming up in this, but yeah, go
no,
ahead.
This is Yoda saying, he's talking about. He almost feels like he's almost embarrassed. I think that's how I take it. Like, oh, when 900 years old, I don't know, the line
Because
or whatever.
good you will not. Yeah,
Exactly. Thank you.
no
That
problem.
line, he's not being vain, but there is a hint of vanity there. Like, why does he care what he looks like? He's a
I think
hermit
it's
that
just-
lives in a swamp. He's really concerned with whether or not Luke is judging him because he looks old. I don't know. It just seems.
I think
again,
he's breaking the tension because Luke sees him as like, this dude's kind of checking out, and I need to train. What are you doing here, Yoda? You're supposed to be, this big, wise, strong Jedi, and here you are, frail and about to die on me.
Yeah.
I need your help. And so I think he was trying to ease Luke's fear, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe the fear, or there might be a little bit of pride in Yoda, where Yoda's still hurting from the fall of the Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Where he's still kind of like, he blames himself for all that.
Well, he
as
definitely
should.
does.
As
Yeah, and he
should.
does. He should.
And-
I mean, he's
and
even vowed never. He doesn't even have a lightsaber. He got rid of his lightsaber and runs around. You don't see this in the.
Yeah.
This is in the comic book, which is canon, but he's running around with a bow and arrow, and he even declares, "I'll never use a lightsaber again because of what happened." I mean, he does, pay for his own sins in a lot of different in a very personal way.
Yeah.
But it's just the vanity of it all, right? And I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe again, that's my petty moment number 2. There's 2 more coming, so I'm just giving you
Oh,
a
I
spoiler
can't
alert
wait.
now.
We've had a few of them already.
We already
so-
have our yeah.
I mean, we
All right,
haven't
let's
got
talk
to
about
the Ewoks. Yeah, so
let's talk about the big moment, because this is the for moviegoers and at the time
is
this
Darth
was the
Vader my father?
the big confirmation. We finally get it here that yes, indeed, it was his father, and how
That was a weak delivery on that line, by the way, Hamill. Just so you know, I'm just saying.
Vader, my father.
Yeah, it was just weak. I'm just saying.
But yeah, I mean, we got confirmation of it, and this is not, and which seems pale in comparison because later on we get a big shocking reveal of just moments later about who his sister was.
Yeah.
But
Twin sister. I love the way he says that. But anyway, go ahead.
not that moment. I'm talking about
Yeah.
in the same scene here a
I
little
know
bit later
with Obi-Wan. Yeah.
with Obi-Wan. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So this was, there was you had to wait 3 years. Although there was there's an interview if you go out there and look at it with David Prowse, who gave a interview and confirmed it all. But the internet didn't exist
Nobody,
back then.
yeah,
so
nobody cared then.
Nobody
They're like,
knew,
Who's
nobody-
this
but-
guy,
but he spoiled
bodybuilder
it.
talking. What does he know?
yeah, meathead.
Yeah.
But yeah, Yoda dying. I know. So was it an emotional thing for you?
No, actually, it wasn't. I think the more emotional thing was the confirmation of Vader being Luke's dad, and then Obi-Wan, and then we get the moment, which means a lot to me, is when you're older, when you're watching when the sequel, the special editions come out, and when you get older and you see Obi-Wan say, many things you hold on to are from a certain point of view, or whatever he says there. I can't remember. Stupid me, I can't even remember the line.
Yeah,
You'd
many
think
of the
I'd
truths we
remember.
cling to. Or
Yeah. And then Luke says, now this one Hamill delivered great, where he just was like, "Are you full of a certain point of view?"
right.
The way he delivered that was good. That hits you because that's true in life. You know what I mean? But now it's been watered down because everybody and their brother says from a certain point of view now, and that moment gets watered down from, at least in my point of view. So, but Yoda dying, no, I mean it was sad, but it didn't really bother me too much. I don't know why. Maybe
Well, I mean, it had to happen, right? I mean, it had
Yeah.
to. It just
You
for
kinda get the
Luke's,
idea.
Luke's
Yeah.
development, it had to happen.
Yeah.
He needed to be kind of isolated and beyond. Even though the Force ghosts are there,
Yeah.
he couldn't. He needed to kind of cut that tie for his character, to kind of take that next step. But I think some of the other great stuff that comes out of here, and again, this is more collaboration between Kasdan and Lucas, but we get a reaffirmation that anger, fear, aggression, right? He says it a second time here, almost verbatim from the lines that he does in Empire Strikes Back. About once you start down the dark path, forever it will dominate your destiny. He says this to him in his dying moments and dying breath. And he tells him that don't underestimate the power or the power of the emperor, or suffer the same fate as your father. And then, of course, we get the last line of, when I'm gone, the last of the Jedi, which, we get the title for Last Jedi and from that. Last of the Jedi you will be. The Force runs strong, your family pass on what you've learned. That kind of harks back to the Rise of Skywalker. Then Luke, there is another Skywalker. So there's a lot of, in just those 5 lines, there's all kinds of stuff that stems from that later on in the mythology and in the movies themselves. But that wasn't enough, right? That wasn't it. So he leaves, and then we get Ben
Well,
returning.
don't forget, we got the line of when Luke says, "I am a Jedi," and he's like, "No,
Yeah.
you're not a Jedi, pal.
You're not
Don't
a
whoa, calm down, pump the brakes." I thought that was a funny moment. But
Well,
continue,
no.
sir.
So I didn't forget about it, because when
Okay.
we get to our moments, this is
Oh, all right.
it's going to tie into that. So I did
Okay,
skip
all right,
over it.
very
but
good. All right,
we'll come back to
sorry.
it. No, you're fine.
All
Let's talk about Ben's return, because this is where, like, man, again, I get it. This was 1983. The prequels weren't out yet, but now looking back, you got to think, dude, Ben, seriously, like, 1, you never told him, and then 2, you're still not telling him the whole truth. Like, what he tells Luke Skywalker here, retrospectively looking back on it, he's like leaving out so many important pieces of the story.
Well, it's truth-telling Sith, lying Jedi. That's the way it goes.
Seduced by the
Jedi-
dark
yeah, but-
side, ceased to
No,
be
I-
Anakin Skywalker.
I took it more as Luke was already shaken by finding the truth of Vader. You couldn't really tell him all this other stuff, because then he's getting closer to the dark side, right? So if you're in Obi-Wan's position, you can't tell him all until, like, things have happened and settled down, and you be like, "All right, dude, come here. Let's pull up this log here and have another discussion. Let me tell you the real truth, which I couldn't tell you before because, as Yoda said, you weren't ready for it, man." And was Luke really ready for the truth?
Maybe not.
Put
That's
it
a good
this way.
point.
All right, so we're in A New Hope, and we're sitting in the hut. Oh, by the way, your dad was this swell guy. Then he fell in love with this girl that he was obsessed with. Then he got seduced and tried to save her. And then the twins were born. He turned to the dark side, wiped out all the Jedi, blah, 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 blah. You think an 18-year-old kid's going to be able to handle that?
No, I don't.
He's
And
already-
that's a fair
so-
point. I think from A New Hope, I get it. But at this point, I feel like he's got to, like, he should have said more. Like, he doesn't bring up. He just says that that he almost comes across as though I had to train him. He never mentions Qui-Gon Jinn. He never mentions I only
Well, they got
trained
into
him
a
because
stat, man. Him and Qui-Gon didn't talk, man. I'm telling you.
Oh,
I know
maybe.
that whole a certain point of view book that says they did in the that didn't happen. Sorry,
that's
didn't happen.
not true. But
No, it didn't happen, and we'll find it in the Kenobi series where they have a discussion, and we'll get into that in
Well,
another
either way, like no,
Yes.
seriously though, I don't think he doesn't mention anything about Qui-Gon Jinn, and I
Mace
didn't want to
Windu.
train him. He just says I took it upon myself to train him. Like, no big deal. Like, he just almost takes that, right. Whatever, I can look past that. But then he never brings up the Chosen One prophecy. Like, why is he never brings that up? And I think it's significant. I think it's significant in that, hey, we're all counting on you, Mr. Luke, because your dad
kill
was
your
supposed to
dad.
bring balance, and now here's why you need to go kill your dad. Right, exactly, because we all thought it was your dad. It's not him. It's actually you. Like, you're the chosen one. This is why it's so important for you to listen to Yoda and to train and to go confront Vader and go take down the Emperor, because you have to restore balance and forth. I think that's. I don't think that's out of question. I think it's fair play for him to have said that. Now, yes, does it put a lot of pressure on him? Absolutely. Is he able to? Would he even be able to rationalize what any of that means? Maybe not.
I don't think so, because look at him. He's already tapping into the dark side stuff. He's walking in, force choking people, communicating with Vader, if you believe that scene with the construction of lightsaber happened.
Yeah.
He's dressed in black. He's going through the emo phase, the goth punk look. I mean, so you can't really. We all want to pick on Obi-Wan, and we've done that many times on this show.
Yeah.
Every time we dissect him and Yoda, we kind of throw them under the bus, and some of it's fair, but some of it you kind of got to see their point of view. And I don't think Luke could have handled any of this. And look at it this way: he trained his father. His father couldn't handle a lot of things, and look what happened, right? So I'm gonna be blatantly honest and truthful, and look where that got me with Anakin. Now here I am. I listen. Vader's got to die. I got to lie to the kid. I got to get my own way. I got to go a little Sithy here.
Well, that's
Just the way it is, man.
I guess, yeah, and that's probably fair, because I guess what I'm saying is nothing's really changed. The Jedi are still the Jedi. We talk about how they made a lot of mistakes in the prequels. Did they really learn from a lot of these lessons?
No.
No.
So they had to do something different. They couldn't, But anyway,
All right.
I mean that we could do a whole show on that.
Oh, I know. Trust me. There's more I want to talk about. We don't have time. Let's see. So we got and then of
We're
course
at the
we get
hour
the big
mark, Albert. We're not.
I'm watching the
get-
clock. Don't worry.
Yeah, you better watch.
We get to the big reveal of Leia being his sister.
This does feel forced. I have to say,
Does it?
it does. I mean, I remember watching it as a kid. It didn't bother me, but like later
Sure.
when we started doing the podcast and everything, and you break it down and you see how between Empire and this, it was a work in progress, really, of how things were going.
Yeah.
And then when this scene here, you're kind of like, really? And then
Well-
I don't know. I mean, it's fine with it. I don't have a problem with it. I'm fine with them being brother and sister. Just the delivery of that seemed kind of very retcon enforced, kind of like last minute type thing. But this is me looking at it 20, 30 years later, right? So
Yeah.
take it for what it is. At the time, I remember being, oh, that's interesting. And then later on, maybe a week after I saw the movie, said he kissed his sister.
Yep. Everybody was thinking that.
Yep. But anyway.
He kissed her, and
then
he was
George kind of like,
competing with
that's
Han.
That's how they do it. Yeah, exactly. So, we'll leave it at that.
There are a couple other things here, but again, I'm gonna table them because I'll come back to them. But it really has to do with his Luke's destiny here, and what Ben Kenobi tells him is like, hey, you got to go fight your father, kill him. And he's like, I can't do that. I can't fight my father. Yeah, and then the Emperor's already won. I mean, that's talking about a lot of pressure. It's like guilting him into this kind of thing. And then Luke immediately is like, well, what about this other person? Wasn't there somebody else? Do I have to do this kind of thing? Yeah, exactly.
And
that's
like,
kind of how
"No,
it came
that's-
across.
That's your sister, and no, I don't think she's going to do that.
Yeah.
Although she probably could, to be honest. If out of the two, she was probably the one they should have went with. And of course, I think it's in the comic or in the book or something. They wanted to train Yoda wanted to train Leia or whatever. But in any case,
yeah.
we'll move
All right.
on.
Well, let's get to the mission brief, the debrief, and this is the journey to Endor. So we get introduced to Admiral Akbar.
It's a trap.
We get introduced to
I
Mon
stole Leia's
Mothma,
line.
the Death Star 2, and then obviously the team getting reunited, which I think is a great moment. I love C-3PO's line there, where he says he talks about being exciting because they're all together again after Luke shows up and all that. I think he's just kind of portraying and projecting what we all feel as an audience, seeing them come together. And I think this is where it really works well. We talked about this in the last movie where they were together as a core unit and then they get split up. We get them back together for the first time since that movie. And this is a great, get to see them all together working like that. I think it's pretty awesome. They get to Endor, and let's talk about the speeder bikes, because this is another one of those things where, the environments change.
Yeah.
And Lucas is, if you go watch, I think it's Empire Dreams. It might be it's one of the documentaries. Lucas talks about this in his formula for changing the environments. He likes to do 3 environments in every movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's never the same. And he was talking about with Endor, he had already done desert, he already done snow, he did the clouds, and so really the only environment left for him that he could do with the money that he had was forest. And so that's why we got Endor, and obviously it's a return to a lot of the stuff that was in some of the original scripts with the Wookiees and all that.
Yeah.
With Kashyyyk, yep. But we get the speeder bikes, which are, I mean, this is just pure adrenaline. And this is again where I feel like this is 100% Lucas coming in his creativity here. Everything from the sounds and the way it was filmed and just giving you that rush of adrenaline on those bikes, which I don't understand how anybody going that speed could navigate through trees. Like, I get Luke and Leia because they're force sensitive, but come on, you mean to tell me, like, these speeder bike guys, they've got to be scout troopers, they've got to be just dying left and right, like hitting trees nonstop.
Well, they were.
What they were in the action sequences, right? Maybe they don't drive that fast when they're like normally just going around. I don't know, but
well, I mean, I think there's a computer that assists. We'll go with that.
Yeah,
maybe.
So from a movie perspective, it's awesome. But like practically speaking, why would you buy a speeder bike going this speed and a very dense forest? Seems like a really bad
Right, people
idea.
ride dirt bikes in the forest like nuts all the time.
But they're
So,
not going, 200 miles an hour or
oh,
whatever.
really? Well, I don't know. I mean, look at the street bikes. The guys on the street, they're doing wheelies and almost 100 miles an hour and everything. So, I mean,
Yeah.
people do these things.
But the speeder bike chase with Luke and Leia chasing the scout troopers. I mean, that's some of the best. Again, another just great action sequence. And then when Luke finally falls off,
Yep.
and just watch that scene and listen.
Sound.
Listen to the sound in the scene, right?
Echoes and yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's just so great stuff. I mean, this is Ben Burtt at his like finest moment, and him jumping off, and then that speeder bike turning around, and then it cuts back to Luke, and then he ignites the lightsaber, and just that sound,
does
and then
the
it comes and chops the front off, and
Yep.
I mean, it's just all, I mean, audio candy, if you will, right? Audible candy for the most part. So, but anyways, this is when this scene came out. I mean, everybody wanted a speeder bike toy, and this
Yeah,
is what we
well,
played with, and we learned all the sounds.
They
And
do the little thing, it would eject and all that stuff. I remember I had one. I did have one.
yeah,
In the
I think it
Biker
broke into
Scout.
like 2 pieces or whatever
Yeah,
it was.
it
and-
would pop up and whatever. And yeah, the Biker Scout, I had to have that.
Yep.
Great scene. I liked it.
yeah, and again, we got to see Luke deflecting bolts again.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is all great stuff. I mean, very very iconic and visually.
Also,
And-
the camo, they had the camo on too, which was different. And then, of course, you think, and the one thing that drives me nuts is like, so Leia and Wicket are hiding behind the thing, and they can't find the Biker Scout who's got white on.
well, yeah,
But yet
outside
they
of
got
like
the camo on, and one's a furry little creature. You think they would blend in, and the Biker Scout almost hits them, and which has got better aim than the guy that was in the Mandalorian, right?
Yeah,
because
that's
this
true.
guy almost nailed Leia.
right, that guy couldn't hit a can like 10 feet
That
away.
guy couldn't. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. No, and this kind of goes back to like the Imperial the Empire itself. They tend to be all in white, and the only time that ever really worked for them was when they were on Hoth.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
kind of fixed it when they got to the prequels, because then we got to see the camo, and okay, that
Yep.
was more practical usage of color and stuff. But I mean, I get it. It's
Action figures. That's what
sure,
that was.
That's all
That's what
action
that was.
figures. But yeah, Wicket and Leia. I always liked Wicket. All right, let's talk about the Ewoks. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Go ahead, Mike Rondo. Tell us how much you loathe the Ewoks.
Actually, I don't loathe them. I don't mind them. I didn't mind them as a kid. Like everyone, a kid, oh, teddy bear, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But when you get older, you're like, couldn't we have done something like, I don't know, better? Like the Wookiees versus, and I get it. It was, you couldn't do that practically, right? Like you couldn't have the giant Wookiees.
Yeah.
And even in Revenge of the Sith, you see the same Wookiees in each shot, like just broken up in groups, like the CGI. It's the same Wookiees just grouped in different, like around the scene. So I get it. Even then, you couldn't do it the way he probably really wanted to do it. So the Ewoks, I get where he's trying to do, like the whole contrast of the big evil empire and then these little guys taking on the big evil empire and all that stuff, and the symbolism, because he took notes from Vietnam, and all that stuff. And I don't know. I just didn't dig on the bears all that much. And it didn't help. We had the Ewok movies and then the cartoon. It just was cuteness overload. And I don't like cute Star Wars. I'll just be honest. I don't like my Star Wars cute. I like it gritty and the way it should be. But it is what it is. I can live with it because I got some of the best scenes in this Return of the Jedi anyway. So I can just wash it over and just move on. But anyway,
the good and the bad there for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think the whole point of the Ewoks, really, and you kind of touched on this, was really about the will of the way. Regardless of the technology, and the message here was regardless of the technology that exists and how powerful you are, and these super battle stations and space stations and all that, it can take anybody. Anybody can do overcome that, right? If they have the will and desire to do so, right? So, and then that was kind of the message that sometimes gets lost in the Ewoks because we're so focused on they don't blink and they're creepy. Which, by the way, they did fix in the Disney Plus edition. They made them blink, but originally they did not. They were just soulless, lifeless, great whites.
Yeah.
Sharks. Yeah. But yeah, that moment with Wicket and Leia, I think is really good stuff. And I mean, gosh, Warwick Davis was like what 10 years old or whatever he was.
He
He
was
was
young.
really young when he did this, and so I mean, hats off to him for his little performance there. All right, let's get in. We're getting into the really beefy stuff now. So we get Vader and Emperor talking about that Vader tells him that my son is with him. I have felt in my master, and then Emperor challenges him. He's like, strange that I have not, right? And this is where I think he's starting to see chinks in the armor there. Like maybe this guy isn't as loyal, and maybe he is going to go to the light side. Maybe that light is starting to come up again. I thought I'd suppressed this enough and all of
But
that.
does this conflict with the Rise of Skywalker?
How
in
so?
the sequel trilogy? Well, because he's supposedly planned all this, right? Like he would have seen this little whatever happen, and then we go over to zombie Palpatine. Does this? I'm just asking a question. Does it conflict with any of that? You're going to say no anyway, but I'll throw the question out there to get people to think.
What's your question? Give me.
Well, no, because he's got this plan all along, right? Like he's foreseen everything. Okay, he didn't foresee this, and he dies, and he was surprised by it, right, from the novel, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
And he transfers his essence to a clone or whatever he does, and all that stuff. But he planned on. He had a backup of a backup, right? So I don't know. Does this make it wonky, or I don't know? I just
No. I mean, is it the quick answer is probably yes. But then we're starting to get into some of the problems I have with the Rise of Skywalker, which I don't want to talk about right now.
Okay, all right.
But I get what you're saying though. Yeah, like just how far out did he? I guess how far out did he foresee a lot of what was going to transpire?
Well, then it goes to that line that he says to Luke. Well, there's a great many things you don't understand.
Yeah.
So it's the only reason I'm throwing these out there. But anyway, continue. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, it was really. He's talking about how he had foreseen that Luke would have come to him. He's like, he will come to me, right? And then he says his compassion for you will be his undoing. And it turns out that his compassion for him was actually the Emperor's undoing. So there's a bit of irony there at the end of the day. And so you got to think that, Vader, and this is kind of what Luke says, which is a great line, right? And I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but it's probably significant that we talk about it now, where he says your overconfidence is your weakness.
Yep.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Luke calling him out like that, and it turns out to be true, not only in this movie, but when you think about what we see in the Clone Wars and the prequels, what we see in Jedi, what we see in The Rise of Skywalker, it's very true. It continues to be a theme for Palpatine. As powerful as he is, his overconfidence is usually what does him in. He gets too confident and too cocky about what's going to happen, whether it's the future, whether he foresees it, or things just falling in line the way they're supposed to, and he doesn't anticipate or he doesn't foresee something else that was kind of blind to him. He gets almost blinded by his overconfidence, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great line there. Okay, we'll quickly talk about 3PO as a god, because again, this is probably a bigger movie moment. I think it stands out. It's a lighter moment. I think the way Anthony Daniels portrays this scene and the way he acts as C-3PO throughout this movie and the last movie is really great. I think it's better than the stuff that we see in the prequels, and slightly better than what we saw in Rise of Skywalker, because I think he did a good job there as well. But yeah, 3PO is a god, and and then the Ewoks we learn something really kind of savage about them in that they eat people, and this is
and
like
they feed people to people.
They feed people to people, and this is stuff that we get from was it the novel that talks about it?
No, it was a comic. The one with The Journey of the Force Awakens, I think it was.
Yeah, it was right before The Force Awakens came out. We got
because Poe's mom, and this is when Ben is conceived or whatever, and even Poe, I think, around the same time. And the two guys are talking to this meat tastes whatever they said. It was kind of like, they fed dead stormtroopers, so
right. Which I think is great, because it sucked all the cuteness right out of those little guys.
Yeah, well, see, this is why I don't like them. Filthy creatures, I'm telling you. But
they're fine.
Yeah,
I'm not above a little cannibalism from time to time.
Yeah. Well, you're desperate enough. You got to do what you got to do.
Well, to be fair, they're not cannibalizing. They're just, they're not human, so
they're surviving. Fine. I get it. I get it.
The other white meat. So yeah, we got the 3PO levitating and Luke doing that. I thought that was always really
Yep.
fun. One of my really favorite moments is when 3PO is kind of retelling everything that
The
had happened in
story,
the
yeah.
first two movies. Yeah, I mean
And the effects, yeah.
the effects that he's doing, whether that's coming out of him, maybe I think it's coming. I think it's coming out of
Yeah.
him, but it's just something you weren't expecting, and you would think, oh yeah, a droid probably would be able to have some of those recordings and play them back. And man, he would make an awesome storyteller for your kids at night.
Well,
Um,
that was kind of the point. Is like R2 and him are
yeah,
storytellers.
sure,
Of course, that got relegated in the sequel trilogy with R2, but
but you're not bitter.
I'm not bitter. I won't, I won't say, you put R2 in the corner. Nobody puts R2 in the corner. But anyway,
Right. But
they did.
yep. And then they join they're part of the tribe, which was always
Yeah.
one of my favorite lines. My brothers and I would always quote this. We are now one of the part of the tribe kind of thing. And then we get
I did like when they're on the thing and he's going, with the flame.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was funny. I don't know why.
No, it is, and it's stuff that like you see that thing, and now that you know what you know about Harrison Ford, you wonder like, was that in the script or was that really
No,
just him
probably not.
ad libbing and improvising? And I'd like to
My-
think it's
my-
the latter.
My favorite Harrison Ford line of all time in delivery was in what is
Raiders
it?
of the Lost Ark.
Nope, Temple of Doom.
Oh,
Is it Temple of Doom?
it's not the
Yes,
Miles.
Temple of Doom.
It's not the years with Miles?
With the things coming down on him, the roof, and he's telling what's his face to pull the lever, and she pokes in and he sees his head. We are going to die, and the thing that was just the way he delivered that. I crack up every time. I don't know why. I can't help myself. But anyway, stupid side story here. But anyway, go ahead.
That's the whole episode's been nothing but that.
Yeah.
Nooch Veda. There you go, right on cue. Okay, so let's get to Leia, because this is probably a show in itself, and I think we have talked about that. Jonesy and I talked about this. I don't remember honestly if you did prior to this, but this moment where he's asking her about his mother, and she's kind of like getting creeped out, like, dude, why are you asking so many personal questions about me right now? In this
Because
moment,
she knows he's like, oh, I kissed my brother. Oh my god.
yeah, exactly.
Because she said, I've always known.
I've always known,
Well,
right?
really, Leia? Well, you got some issues here.
You do have some issues. So you consciously kissed somebody you knew was your... No, that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about her memories of her mom.
Well, I would imagine, and I thought about this after when you see the prequels and everything, and I say to myself, well, maybe Bale kind of had like pitches or something kind of around it, or she had visions herself, like Luke. You'd imagine she would, right? Like the Force is kind of creeping in at times where they would both have visions. Like Luke even says in the swamp, it's something out of a dream. Like I've been here before. So she probably had those feelings as well. And I think that was Lucas trying to, I guess you could say again, force this to be something and maybe have another surprise, like I am your father kind of moment. I think it fell short of that. I don't know. What do you think of this?
Well, and over the years, I went through different phases of what my canon was, my head canon for this was.
Yeah.
Way back in the day, like throughout the 80s, and even into the 90s, before the special edition, I guess. I'd always thought that, actually before the prequels came out, I always took it as they were separated at a young age, but not at infancy.
Yeah.
Right. And I had this theory, and I think did I talk about my theory on the last episode about Luke having gone to Dagobah? It was, right? That we talked about
I think
that?
so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was all part of this grand theory that I had, that when they were separated a little bit older, so that they may have memories or visions. And maybe Luke doesn't remember his for whatever reason, or maybe they got separated, or Luke was separated first and Leia stayed with her mom for a little bit longer. I don't know. I mean, it never really was clear, at least in my head from that point. But it was all part of this grand theory that they were separated early on. And so this was really just, she had some very loose, vague memories of what her mom was. Later on, I think that changed into, well, maybe it was memories of her when she was in the womb. I mean, she was force sensitive, and even though she can't,
it goes with the theory I had of why she really died. I know they say a broken heart is the official story, but I always said she died because Luke and Leia were they kind of just drained her force out of her life energy, because they were so powerful, the two of them together, right? It was like two Anakins inside there. That's how I took it, and that's why she died. And like you said, Albert, like she's getting these memories because she took a part of her with her, I guess, or whatever. Kind of like Ahsoka and the daughter, right? There's a part of her that lives on in Ahsoka, and that's kind of maybe Padme imprinting on her or something. I don't know. Kind of goes with your theory. Just a thought.
Yeah.
I always thought, like growing up, that the Emperor killed their mother. And like you said, it kind of ties into what you're saying. They must have been a little bit older because she could remember. I guess that's kind of where I was going, but I like yours better. But anyway,
Well, that was my theory up until like
Yep.
when the
95?
Well, do you remember the annotated scripts when those came out?
No.
I think it was in the late 90s. I forget now when it was. Maybe it was 2000s. But when those came out, that changed because that gave you some insight into a little bit of where this came from. Because this was, and I have the passage. It says, this is Ben Kenobi telling Luke Skywalker. He says, when your father left, he didn't know your mother was pregnant. Your mother and I knew he would find out eventually, but we wanted to keep you both as safe as possible for as long as possible. So I took you to live with my brother, Owen. So originally, Owen
yeah.
was related to Ben Kenobi. So I took you to see my brother. I took you my brother Owen on Tatooine, and your mother took Leia to live as the daughter of Senator Organa on Alderaan.
Yeah.
Your mother took Leia. So mom was still alive, right? At least in the original script, and that would explain why she says I only have vague memories, feelings, because she did know her. I mean, she was with her. She traveled with her in the original script to, or at least in one of the versions of the scripts. She traveled with her to Alderaan before the baby was handed off to the Organas.
Yeah.
And then brought up, and then that begs the question, okay, so what happened to who we know Padme to be after that, right? Right. But anyways, that all changed. And then now, I mean, these days, it just kind of stick with the, she's probably talking about, her mom and on Alderaan and not necessarily her real mom. And she's just kind of blended the two together because he tells her, like, I want to know, what do you remember about your real mom? And I don't know, it just feels like maybe it's just kind of a blending now and she really can't distinguish the two. But
I always thought it was sad when Luke says, I have no memory at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I felt bad for him there. I don't know. It just.
So again, that plays into the original script a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because he didn't grow up with her and he didn't travel with her. Ben took him and she took her. Yeah. But the thing that always stuck out now, I think more than anything, especially after the prequels, was, she says, image is really feelings, beautiful, kind, sad. You think of somebody like Padme and where she was in her life right before she died, and
that's what she had.
That she was all those things,
which goes back
kind
to
and sad.
Yeah, like the imprinting onto that's kind of how you could kind of say, all right, that's how it works. But anyway.
All right. Luke gives himself up to Vader.
Great scene.
This is a whole show right here, honestly.
Yep. We've done it before. Obi-Wan once thought as you did, which ties into my theory with how we could get them to square off again in the Kenobi series, but we won't hash that here. But it's a good moment, and I like that Luke kind of says it's still, it's your true self, you only forgotten or whatever, and all that. That was great. And then I like Luke turns his back on him, which was kind of brave of him. And then he ignites the saber, and it's like, ooh, you really trusting Dad here. This is a trust fall going on right here.
Well, and there's a parallel there too that I've always thought of, like with Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
When Palpatine turns his back on Anakin, and Anakin lights his ignite saber up when he finds out that he's a Sith, and he doesn't move, he doesn't flinch. But I love that parallel, and I don't know if that was intentional or not, but there is similarities there.
True.
But yeah, I mean, the best thing about this scene, and we don't need to dissect every single line of it because we certainly could do that. But the best thing about this scene for me is always the fact that Luke Skywalker in this moment is really putting it on thick. Like we see these Sith, we've seen the Sith up until this point lay it on pretty thick about give in to your hate and be evil and turn and join me and all that stuff. And we get the inverse of this with Luke Skywalker, all the way to the fact that he says the exact same line that Vader says to him in Empire when they're out there. He says, "Come with me," right before he jumps off the little weather vane thing there. And in this moment here, we get the inverse of that. Luke pours it on really thick and even says the exact same words, "Come with me." To which Vader responds back, "Obi-Wan once thought as you did," right? But yeah, that just the fact that he's really, really trying to lay it on thick and guilt him or make him come to the light. I thought was pretty poignant and significant, of course. So,
of course, then you get the long elevator ride. Well, that's
awkward.
in the Death Star. Yeah, the awkward. Of course, even the flight back to the Death Star is got to be a little awkward, right?
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah,
know.
what was mom like?
Yeah, I that first question. So, Dad, what was Mom like?
Yeah.
Oh, she was awesome.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, until I killed her. But yeah, and he says, yeah, the other line too is it's too late for me, my son, and he keeps calling him son, 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 and so this kind of it's really painting this picture that okay, this mean guy that we've seen the first two movies has really got a soft part in his heart somewhere because he wouldn't
Yeah.
refer to him as that. And then of course it's the ultimate guilt trip by him at the very end there. He says, my father is truly dead.
Truly
It's like,
dead. Yep.
ouch! Wow, right for the heart there.
Right for the jugular.
Yep. Let's get to the Luke and Vader when they confront the Emperor. So that's where you kind of talk about they make their way up to the Death Star, and Luke comes out. I mean, there's something so very like overconfident about him here in this moment as well, where he's like, "Soon I'll be dead, and you with me."
With me, yeah.
Like, dang, dude,
you tried this before with Jabba, and it didn't go so well.
Yeah.
And now you're going before the most powerful guy in the universe here, and you
Right.
think this is gonna work? Come on.
Yep.
I get it. You're trying to be, puff up the big feathers and look bigger than you are, but I mean, come on.
And he says, "Soon I'll be dead, and you with me." And then right after that, he says, "Your overconfidence is your weakness. Your faith in your friends is yours."
Yep.
I mean, just the exchange. I really wish they
That was
would have had
great.
more dialogue between
Yeah.
those two.
It was great.
Yeah, the good stuff. And there's a lot to talk about here. We'll skip over we'll come back to it in just a second because we cut over at that point over to the beginning of the Battle of Endor in space and on the ground. We get the infamous "It's a trap," which is now an infamous meme that stands out today.
Stole Leia's line. She
What?
said it first in Empire.
Oh
It's
yeah,
a trap. Yeah.
Well, maybe he did it better though. It's a trap.
Well, I don't know. That was a good one though.
Yeah, it
Did
was
a good
good.
one.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll give
I
it-
got a couple in me. So that one's good. And we'll get more to the battle itself because I want to get some overall thoughts when we get to the actual space battle. But then we're not going to break down every line, but the tension that happens between Luke and the Emperor and how he's just egging him on and really getting under his skin, right? To the point where he says, "You want this, don't you? The hate is swelling
Well,
in
because
you."
you could feel the hope falling out of Luke there.
Yeah.
With the fleet getting decimated, the friends down below they're in a trap. He's really pinned into a corner here, and he's got no hope but to give into his anger or his, fear and all that. And that's exactly what the Emperor wants here. You can see it in his face. Like you can see like, I didn't want to. I was so cocky 10 minutes ago, and here I am.
He breaks him down just
Yeah.
slowly and methodically, and it's all part of his plan, and which is what we give. We've got to give Sidious credit for a lot of things, especially his just planning. I mean, who else could have taken down the Jedi Order in the way he did, and how long that took? I mean, he does play the long game. He's got a lot of patience when it comes to breaking down these things. So that's certainly to his credit.
Yes.
Okay, so overall with the Battle of Endor, I mean, like, what are some of your, like, just visually, since you're, the shiny object guy, what were some of the things you liked about the Battle of Endor?
The Ewok dying.
No, come on.
What? That was going to be my scene, by the way, everybody. I was going to go with that just to upset all of you
Yeah.
because I'm a jerk face, as some
Yep.
people have called me. But to that point, I will say this: at 8-year-old Mike, when he saw the Ewok die, it was a little bit like, ooh, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
That was like one of those deaths that you had an emotional connection to because it was a good guy dying, right? So you kind of like, as a kid, you're like, oh, whoa, this is getting serious now. Like they weren't supposed to die.
Right.
What he did, the teddy
the good
bears, you
guys.
can't just kill the teddy bear.
Yeah.
But as you get older, you're like, hey, cool, that's cool. Vader should have skewed a few, but that's a whole other thing. But the ATST was probably my highlight. Like I like seeing those chicken walkers, which were pretty cool. Which is a different variant, and I learned this recently with the Mandalorian.
Yes.
They mentioned that the one on Hoth is a little different, which actually is a better looking model than the one that was in Return of the Jedi. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, that, and then I guess when you look at it, the low tech versus the high tech thing, it was kind of an interesting dynamic, right? That was kind of highlight. I like that, but that's about it. And then Han being Han, hot wiring it, and then Chewie get down here, blah blah blah. It was all good.
Yeah, no, there's great moments in there. For the Ewoks, I mean, just seeing things like gliders, catapults, the traps,
The logs hitting the thing.
logs, lassos on the front of the speeder bikes, and then just
I
lots
want
and
to
lots
know,
of rocks.
when did they plan for all this? Like, when did they put the logs so that they would fall in the ravine? When did they do the thing? Like, were they building this for months, and then they showed up and like, hey, we can do this because we were going to do this anyway, guys. So you just accelerated our plans. I don't know.
I don't know.
All
It's
right.
movie magic. I think, yeah,
Okay.
suspension of disbelief. Yeah, but you're right.
Okay.
There was a
All
lot of prepping that had to happen, and there was no time to do any of it. So
Yeah, like they're not
we're just
building
going to
that
accept it.
in a day. That's like months of planning. But anyway.
Yeah. We got the thing. I think I got it. And then the door closing. I mean, that's all great comedy there.
Yep.
Leia saying "I love you," and then I know. All right, flashback to Empire Strikes Back, which that's good stuff. And then the space battle going on. All right, this is kind of a Star Wars recipe where we've got multiple battles on different fronts,
Yep.
and they're all kind of coming back and forth, and you're
The
jumping in
formula
between them.
of bringing them down and then building it back up, like
Yeah.
giving you the no hope to hope type of thing
Right.
to turn into the battle. That's a classic Lucas thing, but continue.
This space battle was probably my favorite. It was for the longest time. Yeah, right when this came out, this was like the apex in terms of what we saw for space battles. But yeah, I mean, it was great, super fast, a lot of stuff blowing up. Wedge and Lando are awesome. I mean, they're just badasses throughout all of this entire fight.
Yep.
Things that we think about now, looking back, having Lando flying again with L3, which again, retrospectively, there's nothing they could have done. It was kind of retconned, if you will. Not really, but you would have thought that there would have been more interaction. Had this all been part of a grandmaster plan all along, then you would have hoped that they would have included that in there. But just the idea that he was there flying around with L3 and being reunited in that way, I think is a really cool thing to think about. And then the big shocker or the big surprise is when he says "Fire at will, Commander," and that Death Star being operational. And the tactics that had to change with Lando saying, "Hey, we need to engage the Star Destroyers," and the idea of that we don't have a choice, right? It's either we stay out here and get picked apart by the Star Destroyer, or we engage the Star Destroyer or the Death Star, or we engage the Star Destroyers and eliminate that. So,
Do you want a quick death or do you want a slow, painful
right,
death?
yeah, and he chose a slow, painful death because
Yeah.
we've got to buy Han more time, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, that was all good stuff. Finally, Luke gives in, and we get Vader, stopping his lightsaber from hitting the Emperor. And we get the cackle, that scene, and just the imagery of it all is really great stuff. And then we, of course, get the fight between Luke and Vader that starts. And this has just been building up over the course of the last, 15 minutes in the movie, but the course of, a year and longer, right, since Kenobi died, really, of him wanting to exact revenge on, Vader, who he just found out was his father. But give me some thoughts, I guess, on the overall battle without getting into your moment, because I know we want to talk about that very shortly here. But I mean, just the battle of itself between Luke and Vader.
I can't, without expressing the moment, I can't really, other than it was one of my favorite, I guess, battles, emotional battle, right? Because you can't really call it like a full-on lightsaber battle like we see in the prequels, or, well, maybe the sequels, a little more action type stuff with the lightsabers. At this time, it wasn't that. It was more dialogue kind of thing. It was more emotionally impacting, I thought. So I'll leave it at that before.
Yeah, because you're starting to bleed into your moment.
I mean, I am, and I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna. What? Give me your thoughts. How's that?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of visual things that are just kind of eye candy for me. Seeing Vader throw his lightsaber, his saber throw was really cool. Like, to your point, the dialogue here where he's like, you couldn't bring yourself to kill me before, and I don't believe you'll destroy me now. I mean, Luke's just taunting him again.
There
He just
is
keeps
no conflict.
He just keeps pulling on his good side. Like, he's relentless. He doesn't stop even throughout this entire fight. And the one thing that always stood out to me too is, like, Vader always keeps saying, Obi-Wan taught you well. Obi-Wan taught you well. And I still really don't understand, like, whether or not he thinks that Obi-Wan has been training him, or if this is just somehow he got trained between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back before Empire Strikes Back starts, and somehow that was enough for him. I don't know. Anyways, it's not.
Well, I think Well, because I think you're gonna have a moment where they do meet again, Kenobi and Vader, and
Vader.
there's gonna be an exchange like this between the two of them. More dialogue, not so much fighting.
Yeah. You're saying when we get to the TV series.
Yeah, the TV series. Yes, that's what I think will happen, and I hope, to be honest, I really do, because it ties that loose end that I've been saying for the last 9 years since we've been doing the show about Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
Yeah.
Because Vader says it in a way like, wow, I had people that believed in me. Even my old master believed in me for that one brief moment. I had Qui-Gon that believed me. And now the third luck is a charm here. My own son believes in me still after all I've done to people and everyone. And even Ahsoka, right? All these people
Yep.
didn't believe in me, and I still have one that believes in me, and this is the one that does it for me. I don't know. It'd be interesting, but we'll continue on, sir.
Yeah. No, so that was the other thing, without, again, getting into your moment here, but Luke is on the defensive for most of this fight. And it's only until, they make mention of Leia that he completely goes the other way. It goes the other direction and becomes the offensive. And to the point where he's able to take Vader down. Of course, we get the moment where he cuts his hand off and looks at his hand and realizes he's about to do what he was trying not to do, right? He was about to become the very thing he was trying to destroy,
Avoid.
if you will,
Yep.
or avoid. And then him finally just turning to the Emperor and saying that he had lost and that he had become a Jedi like his father. Him getting shocked with Force lightning, we had not seen that before.
Mhm.
That was, like, again, another layer of the mythology and the powers of the Jedi and the Sith.
I do have a
being able to
nitpick,
see
though.
that. What's that?
I do have a few nitpicks though with this whole throne room. This throne room, I mean, we won't even get into the Rise of Skywalker with the door on the side that wasn't
Never there.
But yeah. But when Vader throws his saber, knocks the stairs down there, right? Or the catwalk or whatever, Luke goes into hiding, right? They're both in the same, they're like 2 feet away from each other, and Vader doesn't sense or see him. And he's got Luke's lightsaber in the other hand. Of course, that's, he's actually got 2 lightsabers, but that's a whole editing thing. But the point being is, like, Luke's right there.
He's
I don't
hiding behind that
I know.
like
He's hiding
4-inch
behind
diameter pole, Mike.
I know. It's like the
on.
cartoon. You hide behind the pole. I get it. It's
Yeah.
just nitpicking. I had to say it before I get into my moment or whatever.
I know. All right, so then we get the prophecy being fulfilled finally, and him kind of picking up Emperor and throwing him over, which I thought was great.
Yes.
I don't like that they added the
I don't mind it.
So it's, again, more special edition stuff that I just didn't think needed to be there. We got it. You don't need to spoon feed me some of this stuff, but they did. Anyways, I always thought that was his soul leaving, though, even back when it originally aired.
We talked about this before,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
we've said this.
And that played really well into the Dark Empire comics, and then obviously into the Rise of Skywalker, and how I explained it. But it never felt like the door was really closed on the Emperor. So as much as people hate the fact that the Emperor came back, dude,
I think it's
right
just the
there.
way he came back.
Sure, it's the way he came back. That's fair.
But we'll argue that.
Yep,
in a few weeks.
and a few more shows.
Yes, and I'll get yelled at by Albert. But
Yep, you will.
In any case, yes.
The destruction of the Death Star, we got to see that blow up again, which I don't know. I mean,
Didn't
the
do much
original
for it.
script had 2 Death Stars, by the way. I don't know if
Yeah.
there was 2
you know
Death
what I
Stars
did
floating
like?
around that planet.
I like the Superstar Destroyer crashing into the Death
Yes.
Star. That was cool.
That was cool. Concentrate all
Good-
fire on that Superstar Destroyer.
Yeah, it gave good sense of scale.
Yep.
Which I thought
Like,
was
wow,
pretty
that thing's
cool.
massive.
Yeah, exactly. But they're both massive, but I thought that was pretty cool though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we get to another big moment where Luke finally pulls the mask off Vader.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was jarring for me as a kid. Like, not at all who I expected to be.
Maybe I do remember, like, it was like a Scooby Doo episode. It's like,
Right.
that's the guy. But it doesn't bother me. It was all right. It was just like, that's him. And like Luke has this look of like, oh, that's my dad. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, all right. I thought you were gonna be handsome, but
Oh, and
I guess that lava thing kind of didn't work out for you, huh?
yeah, I don't know. It was weird. Like Sebastian Shaw. I mean, I just accepted it, I guess. But
Yeah, most of us
the
did.
problem that I have with that is he's got an English accent.
Hmm.
And you can hear traces of it, right? You hear traces of it, and he doesn't have the English accent in the prequels.
Yeah.
So
Well, he's
don't
been on Coruscant a lot, so he's got that
Oh, he's picked it up.
Coruscant accent now. That's
Most of the
what
Empire have British accents or English accents, so maybe
yeah.
maybe he picked it
Well,
up from there.
yeah. I don't know. I just remember what the dialogue again outshined the look. Like when he says, "You already have," and he kind of just fades away and does his
Oh, tell your sister you're
Yoda.
right. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, type of thing.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because he didn't have much with Leia other than A New Hope. That was their big thing, right? And then he's here, like, because he knows who the sister is, obviously, and how she's going to be about it. But he's, like, in his final moments, he's like, just tell her you were right. I know she's not going to forgive me, but there was some good in me, and I did what I had to do. And she'll have to resolve that some way. So it was interesting that his last moments were on her and not so much Luke. Like he'd said, all right, Luke, you kind of saved me, thank you. Let me look on you with my own eyes. That's great. But he mentions Leia, like he kind of reaches out in a way to Leia. Not that, I don't know. It's just strange that his final moments are like, just like kind of just mention this to her,
Yeah.
kind of means a lot to me because I got to resolve things with you, but I didn't with her. And I'm kicking off to Force Ghost heaven here.
Yeah.
Just, but anyway.
No, I like it. I actually like it because I mean, you think about as a parent, right? You want the most for your kids. You want to have I mean, I would like to think most of us want to have a meaningful relationship with our children, which he never had. And so, yeah, he's only got a few things left to say, and he's thinking about his kids, which I think is great. But yeah, the other parallel here that hit me with The Rise of Skywalker, and I'm a big fan of Ben Solo, and I hate the fact that we never got a Ben Solo, and we got to see him be Ben Solo for just a few minutes. And put aside the prequel trilogy, but Luke never really got to see, much like Rey never got to see Ben Solo for only a brief moment of time. It parallels with Luke here. He wanted so long to see his father and wondered about him, wanted to become like his father. And he only knew his father in those dying moments where he was dragging his nearly dead body, where he finally had to stop, and then he dies, and then he loses him and never really gets to, well, as far as we know, never got to connect with him. So all I'm saying is that there's a parallel that exists with Luke being robbed of having more time with his father in life, to Rey having more time with Ben in his life.
Well, maybe when Luke takes his helmet off and he has that look, you could interpret it as like, I know for me, when I was getting older, when I was young, you have this vision of your dad being this superhero, larger than life kind of figure, kind of hero. At least I did, right? With my father. I know not everyone has that, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
And as you get older, you learn that your father was flawed.
Right.
Right. And then, Luke never got any of that. So then he takes the helmet off. He's expecting this, this monster, whatever he's got in his head. And he takes it off. And it's kind of a humbling moment of like, oh, he's a human. He's just like me. He's fragile and all this other stuff. And it's almost like a relief to Luke. Like, he's not this big thing that I envisioned in my head and everyone else was telling me about. He's just a man like me. Mm-hmm. And I think that took a lot of pressure off of Luke. And so that's kind of maybe why you see him do the, kind of like a relief in a way. But anyway, I just had that thought. I threw it in there.
No, it's a good, I like it. There's a lot of symbolism in the armor coming off, right? The guard coming down and just exposing the human nature of him there and the fragility of him. Okay, so
right, we should jump into the
we need to get into it because we can talk about the indie moments. Yub Nub was better. Let's just leave it at that.
About the dance and Ewoks and everything else. And
but
fireworks.
Can we just talk about the Force Ghosts?
Yeah, all right, we can.
Well, Vader's funeral too. Any reason why you think Leia wasn't there? She didn't care.
No.
Did he tell her?
No, I maybe after, maybe. Well, she wasn't really in tune quite yet, so I don't think. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah. All right.
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about Yub Nub. That was a better song. All right. Force Ghost, Anakin.
Hayden. Yep, I'll go with Hayden.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Yep. Sorry. Well, you're old school. What can I say?
Well, when it comes to some things, I am, but I just
stingy.
All right. Let's get into your moments.
All right. Well, good. Actually, I'm surprised you didn't bring up the controversy. Well, that's you're going to talk about Rex or not Rex?
Oh,
quickly.
Nick or
Yeah,
no,
Saint Nick. Yeah, it's not Rex. I'm
it's not.
sorry, it's
They've
not.
never really officially said it. I
Yeah, I
know I
know.
posted something
Yeah.
about it, and I'd like to see the story of just who that character is, regardless if it is or not. If I'm not
It's
saying that it
not.
is or isn't, I don't think it is.
It,
But if it either way, I
it's
just
whatever
think
you
it's a
want it to
I
be.
think it's a funny moment that they show him and he's sitting there and he's got I want to know what's going on there and see it, and more than just, oh, he's putting on the armor. I get it.
Well, when they
He
get to
put
the
the
certain
armor
point
on.
of
I get
yeah,
that
yeah, when they get to the certain point of view, Return of the
story.
Jedi,
Yep.
he'll tell it.
No,
And
come on,
then,
let's go. We got
all
15
right,
minutes to get. We got
all right,
in the hour that we have left. Let's get to our moments.
yeah, all right. Listen, all right. So my favorite moment is actually the moment where Luke gives in to his hate. Once he says, "So you have a twin sister. If you can't turn, perhaps she will," and then he loses his mind. And the symbolism there for me, and of course the music swells, which I think adds to this whole scene being one of the best scenes for me, at least in all of Star Wars. And Luke giving in and just giving in to his anger and overpowering his father, and his father saying, "Oh boy, I bit off more than I can chew here. Like he's really gonna turn here." Or Vader was maybe accepting that, all right, Luke's my replacement, and he's gonna be the Sith guy next, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And I can be proud of that, I guess, or something like that. But for me, it it meant more when I get older, like with the not even the special edition release, but like after when the prequels started coming out, and I watched it after because in my own life, I was seeing up on the screen, and this kind of like with Lucas himself, right, where it's both his light side and his dark side fighting each other. It's like that old Native American proverb: "Which wolf are you gonna feed, the good one or the bad one?" Which and it's kind of like playing out right there on the screen.
yeah,
And me emotionally, as a young man that was going through things and trying to figure out where I'm going to go, am I going to go to the dark or the light? And you see it visually up on the screen, and the music's swelling. It's almost like a religious experience between the two because and again, it's like the Duel of Fates, kind of like it's got the voices and everything. And you see the contrast of the green blade and the black, and then the black. I'm thinking of the dark saber here,
red.
the red blade, and then going back and forth, and you see Luke giving in, and at the time when you're a kid, you're like, oh my God, he's gonna turn, and then you see him, whacking, he chops his hand off, and then and it leads into what you're gonna talk about in a minute, where Luke looks at his hand and sees Vader's hand with the little wires, which they could have did a better job with those wiring, just saying, on the hand. And he pulls himself back, which Anakin could not do. Like as Obi-Wan says, you become the very thing you swore to destroy.
Yep.
And Luke could. Luke pulled and this kind of gives Obi-Wan the belief, like, yeah, I was right. It's the kid. I was right. I won the lottery here.
Yep.
And then one of the greatest moments, which ties into your moment, where he throws the lightsaber and says, you failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi like my father before me. And that got me all excited because I'm very close to my father. And it's like, yes, okay, I get that. Like
Yeah,
that whole connection. I actually took the good path and all that stuff. But yeah, that's one of my favorite moments of all time is that whole scene there with the music and whatnot. But
Yeah.
anyway,
No, it's great. I mean,
thoughts?
the music is. We've talked about that as like some of the best music, and it's hard to find on the soundtracks. I think
It's
you have to
it's
have
on
like
the special. It's on one of them, and it's only a brief moment because I try to play it all the time, but it's only a brief moment. It's like a minute, if
Yeah.
that, less than that.
and that scene's all about that. That at least that
Yeah.
particular part of the scene is only all of about a minute.
Yeah, and then the
as
way
well.
the camera's panning and them going across the window there and doing their thing, and it was awesome. But anyway, go ahead.
No, so very similar to you. I was kind of teasing this out in Discord a little bit as I was trying to like kind of finalize my thoughts on what I wanted to talk about. So, I think the question that I posed was, for me, it's that last line, right? I'm a Jedi like my father before me, but it's a little bit more than that. There are a couple layers here that I want to kind of touch on. So I want to start, and the question I put in Discord was, was Luke a Jedi? And I'm not asking for a definitive answer. I asked
Yep.
that because it is something that they, like you said, Yoda, when we talked about earlier, Yoda pushed back and like, no, you're not a Jedi yet, buddy. You're not a Jedi until you confront Vader, right?
Yeah.
At the very, if you really just break it down, what they're saying is he needs to confront Vader, but what he really needs to be doing is confront his fear.
Yeah.
And so this plays into another question that I have is what was Luke's destiny? Because I think if you look at the way he ends that moment, he hits that was his destiny, it was to become a Jedi. And there's a lot of things that happen, right? And again, you gotta go have to kind of go back and look, starting with Empire or A New Hope. They kind of lay the groundwork that this is essentially what it is. And I know this is not, again, not rocket science, but early on in that movie, when his farmstead is burned down, he goes back to Ben Kenobi and says, I've got nothing left for me here. I want to be a Jedi like my father. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father. That's
Yeah.
all he wants to do, right? It's the only goal in life. That is in his mind, that is his destiny, is to become a Jedi. He has no idea really what that means. He has no idea what he's about to step into and walk into and all that. But that's at its core. That's what he wants to do. He has his vision of what his father is, and he's enamored by the fact that he wants to be like his father because his Kenobi just spoke really highly of him, and now there's
Yep.
some kind of vengeful part in there because Vader killed his father, right? So it's all really noble and cavalier. But you look at it from the perspective of some of the other characters, the players in the movies, from Obi-Wan and Yoda's perspective, they want him to become a Jedi, but it's a little bit more than that. They want him to become a Jedi because he is the chosen one in their mind, right? They think that he's got to become a Jedi in order to be able to fight Vader. And they say so much in, was it Empire? Where he says only a Jedi trained in the Force can
Yeah.
defeat Vader, right? They just tell him you have to be a Jedi. You have to be of this level, right? There's a mark that you've got to meet in order to confront Vader, in order to beat Vader. In from Luke's perspective, again, he's still thinking, okay, I got to beat Vader because that will bring justice or avenge my father's death, right? But from their perspective, is like, no, you're the chosen one. We went through. You have no idea what we've gone through the last 20 years and prior to that, and you're our only hope, maybe.
Luke could have said, "Well, had you not lied to me and just told me
Told
the
me the
truth from the
truth.
beginning,
Well, that's what I've been
this
saying."
this might have been easier." But then again, you couldn't handle it. But continue,
Yeah,
sir.
no,
Sorry.
I get it. But yeah, so from their perspective, and I'm not saying they're being, they're greedy or they're conniving in any way, but from their perspective, they really need him to become a Jedi because that is the only thing that's left. The prophecy's been there. Qui-Gon's died. The Jedi Order's fallen. They're in shambles. They have no way of resurrecting any of this.
This is
And
it.
the
Yeah.
balance is going to be forever thrown off unless they get this guy to get him trained, get him to become a Jedi, and get him to defeat Vader. From Vader's perspective now, he wants Luke to maybe not necessarily become a Jedi, but he wants Luke to join him so that they can overtake the Emperor.
Mhm.
So his like, he's got different motivation there as to why he wants Luke and why he needs Luke to kind of join to complete his training and allow Vader to complete his training for him because he wants to prep him and get him ready to overtake the Emperor. From the Emperor's perspective, it's the opposite, right? He wants Luke to become a Jedi or become strong in the Force so that he can take Vader's place and be Emperor's right hand man. You could now, with the rise of Skywalker, you could probably argue that there's another level there that he is going to need that body and that host at some point, and he wants to take that over, and so he's kind of prepping that aspect of it all. But all of this is to say that they all want him to become a Jedi, and the only way that they've expressed in I guess what I want to go back to, or what I want to say now, is the Rise of Skywalker. In the Rise of Skywalker, there is one line that Luke talks about, and when he's talking to Rey, Luke says, "It was fear that kept me here." He's talking about being a Noctu. He says, "Fear is what kept me here. I was wrong." And then he asks Rey, "What are you most afraid of?" And she says, "Myself." He says, "Because you're a Palpatine." And then we get the one line that I think for me always, it's kind of tied all of this together. It says, confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi, your destiny. He's almost saying that, and I started thinking about this, like with Kanan, and I mean, just there's a lot of Jedi that we have in canon, but all of these Jedi eventually do confront their greatest fear or some fear, and it's only then that they achieve this next level of Jedi knighthood or masterhood or whatever the case may be. But really, you think about the title of the movie, The Return of the Jedi. There's two, and we kind of talked about this before we came on the air, but there's two meanings to it. It's the Return of the Jedi, meaning the Jedi in general. Luke Skywalker finally doing what he needs to do, and that's confront his fear, which for him, his fear was, at that point in the movie, not becoming his father, right? He did not want to become his father. You go back to the cave, right? And him seeing his face in the helmet and that was that was signifying that what he could become, and he had to overcome that fear, and he does. Um, so he had to overcome that fear in order to become a Jedi, and it was only then, back to what you were saying, that he finally became the fear. He almost gave in to the dark side. He almost gave into his aggression, his fear. What's the other one? Anger, right? He did all three of those things in that moment when they're fighting, and leading up to that, he hit all three of those elements, and he stopped himself just short of really allowing the dark side to fully consume him and kind of overtake his destiny. And it was then and only then that he actually became the Jedi. And if you look back at the script and you look at all this, if you go back and watch it, there's so many instances in here where where he keeps acknowledging that he is a Jedi, and it's only until the very end of this movie when he finally confronts that fear, when he finally is able to turn away from the dark side and say, no, I'm not going to become like my father. Regardless of what happens to me now, I may die, but I'm not going to take that final step. It's only then and then that he actually becomes a true Jedi. So I don't know I don't really have a good way to kind of put a bow on it, but it's certainly things that, I think about these days, especially with The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, for much grief as I've given that movie, that line of confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi, I think is a great line, and it was used in one of the trailers. And now, retrospectively looking back on this movie and a lot of the stuff that we've gotten from canon for the Jedi, I think it really, I don't know, it resonates really well with me. So,
But didn't Luke confront his fear, and then yet he goes and hides on Octu because he's afraid? So didn't he conquer that already? But
well, it's kind of like
that. We'll save that for when we get to the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like how do you what you're talking? Maybe I'm probably putting words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is a question that I've thought about too. Like, where does your destiny end? Right?
Yeah.
Like, where do you draw the line? And I think for Luke, again, going back to what from A New Hope, his destiny, at least until that point, was only to become a Jedi. That's it. And he did that. He fulfilled all.
Well, he returned the Jedi because Yoda says, "Pass on what you learn." So that was the moment there. Luke was the beginning of the new.
Yeah.
And in Legends, Obi-Wan comes to him and says, "No, Luke, you got to do this on your own in a different way than what we did. Learn from our mistakes." Kind of talk. I'm paraphrasing, really. The return is really Anakin returning the Jedi that he once was, and then, of course, he dies, and then it's passed on to Luke. So it's kind of like two...
Yeah, there's two meanings to it.
Yeah, there's two meanings to it. That's
similar to The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, sort of.
And The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Who was The Last Jedi? Was it Rey? Or was it Luke? It was both.
Well...
Depending on your certain point of view.
Well, what about the Jedi that are floating around in space that Kylo didn't kill? In the comic. Didn't that happen?
Like the Jedi floating around in space?
Yeah, remember Kylo when the Emperor blows up the temple or whatever he does in the comic book there or whatever, and then, these Jedi, they arrive and Kylo gets into a thing with them or whatever. Yeah, they're around still, right? They're floating around in space somewhere. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. So was he really the last Jedi?
I think, technically by the time the movie comes out, yes, he was. But we can talk about it when we get there.
All right. Can't wait. Gonna be fun times.
All right, let's...
Sure you want me on for the sequel trilogy, because...
Yeah, I know, right? We got to think about that. All right, before we get out of here, we do want to make one quick announcement. So we've been running a Star Wars trivia contest. So thanks to Kat, our social media person, she's been kind of spearheading a lot of this, and she's done a lot of great work. And so if you're not familiar with what we're doing, once a week, we post a Star Wars trivia question, and you can answer the question. You can just see what everybody else is posting, but put the right answer in there. And once a month, we are going to send out a free T-shirt, a Cantina Cast T-shirt to a winner. So we randomly pick somebody from one of the weeks. So obviously, the more times, if you play all 4 of the games, then you have 4 chances. So it behooves you to answer all of them. But we just finished the June contest. So we are glad and happy to announce that JMC Fall 81 is our winner for June. So he will get a T-shirt. So I'll get that out the door, at least ordered tonight, and you will get that. And then I think Kat's going to start that up here next week with the next contest for July. So again, follow us on Instagram. The only rules are you have to answer the question, or one of the questions at least. You can answer all 4, but at least 1 per month. And you need to be following us on Instagram. You do those 2 things, we'll randomly pick a name, and hopefully it'll be you next time. So congratulations.
Can't wait to win my T-shirt. Woohoo!
Yeah, I've got a whole stack of them back here if you want one.
Wow.
But no,
I got the old school, like
Yeah.
old school, the awful T-shirts. But anyway,
All right. And then
else?
lastly, feedback. So from Twitter, Keith Shadbolt says, great podcast, guys. Was driving through sunny Elstree while listening to this. Thank you. And this was, I think this was the Empire Strikes Back show that we just did. So thank you for the Twitter feedback and thanks for listening to the show.
Very good.
And look at that. I've got 20 seconds left before we hit the 2-hour mark. Any final words before we get out of here?
I'm hitting the button and we're getting out of here because it's midnight and I'm tired.
All right.
Good discussion, though.
It was good. It was a lot of fun. We'll be back next week with The Force Awakens. So see you then.
Shall be. Yes.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.